do your work here today and the work of the people of this county, and rededicate ourselves to public service. We pray for strength and wisdom, understanding, and compassion for the common good. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Even though these are times of COVID and maybe past COVID, I'm not sure, I do ask you all to put your phones on silence or vibrate so that they don't interrupt the proceedings. The first thing we do at the beginning of every meeting is receive public input. And this is an opportunity for the court to receive the input from the people for anything that is not on our agenda. If it's on the agenda, if there's an agenda item that you want to speak on, please wait for that agenda item to be called. Otherwise, if it's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to talk to the court and give us your input. And before I ask you to come up, I want you to understand that if you'll notice, it is input. We don't get to give output. This is something for us to listen. We don't respond at the time, although these are things that we listen to and take very seriously. So I do have some speakers here. I don't know if anybody, okay. First one is Hadassah Regier, is that right? Regier. Okay. And if you would go to the podium and identify yourself and tell us which precinct you live in.
I'm embarrassed with her dress. People don't know.
Hi, I'm Hadassah Regier. I live in Precinct 2. I'm actually, my husband would be here, but for work. I received this in the mail talking about the Center Point village that's going to be developed soon. And so I've written something on that. It is a grievous thing that freedom can tie our hands at times and that laws can be usurped and twisted to unwise ends. It's depressing and it requires a lot of fortitude and willingness to look to the needs of the future amidst the insufficiencies of the present. You are tasked with upholding the spirit of the law and not just the letter. And it is in light of that I ask you to fight for the will of your constituents in opposing this plan for Center Point Village. It is unwise on practical levels, citing the aquifer and the infrastructure needs, and sets a precedent for developments of this sort which cannot help but drastically alter the lifestyles of this community. Now, you are the last people to whom I should feel obligated to explain the value of a rural life. I grew up in the suburbs of San Antonio, and that's not the life that I want for my children. By the grace of God, we left the burning money grab and watched the character of the town waste under on-trend commercialism. We were willing to put up with an hour's drive to work to be able to grow our own food and establish a farm and raise our children to value and protect the land, and we love it here. The reason that we love it is the land in its natural state, not carved up into smaller and smaller plots with the same 15 box stores within a 20-minute drive of every direction. Your office is a guard to our lifestyles and to our ability to enjoy freedom from the city. And I would implore you to use your term to help us seek protection for our land and our water, to help us preserve a sanctuary for those who can see the value of a simple life and want to impart something lasting to our children. I would also like to add that being a single-family income, most people in our position are tied to a larger city. We can only move so far away before the drive time takes over our ability to provide for our family. So if we want to raise our kids in the country and be able to have a farm and grow our own food and do all of those things, there has to be some sort of physical middle ground that allows us to do that. Is that my time? Oh no, okay. And so that's what I would ask y'all to consider. We saw this happen in Bernie. We protested there as all of the different antique homes would go up for sale, and the land developers smelled blood in the water, and it was easy money, and so they went in and they would put 4 houses on a single lot, and they could do it because the easements were established at the turn of the previous century. And it was just really sad to watch. And I don't want to see that happen here, especially since we've worked so hard to be able to come out to the country and be able to have this kind of lifestyle. But it only really works if the community is able to see the value of empty land and of land that is designated for farm use. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rozier. Before you leave, you have your daughter and 2 sons with you, and I double checked with the sheriff. They do have their concealed carry permits for this program. But if you would just introduce your family.
Yes, this is Vanilla Rozier, and she is 3, and she is precious. And this is my son, Emrys. Emrys, can you stand, please? And this is my son, Idris. Emrys is 8 years old. Idris is 5 years old, and we homeschool.
Okay.
Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
court. Good to see you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to address the court at this particular point in the proceedings? This is input only. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rozier. Moving on to commissioners' comments. Let's start with Commissioner Precinct 1.
I don't really have anything to report.
Precinct 2, I wasn't able to attend, but Center Point Volunteer Fire Department had a big barbecue. I understood there was good turnout. That's a fundraiser. As I listened to Commissioner Ballou on the radio, volunteer fire departments are important, and support these type of fundraisings is extremely important. So it was good, and that's all I have right now.
Okay. 3.
I don't have any, just enjoying the very pleasant July weather, very cool, nice rain, so other than that, no comments.
Well, I've been absent lately. I'll tell you that I've been fighting the China virus the last couple of weeks, and finally got a negative test where I could come back and get out of the house, which feels good. Sorry, Charles, I couldn't make your fundraiser. I usually try to make all of them, but I hope you did well with it and what have you. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, I have something I'd like to report on that is of county-wide significance. This afternoon at 4 o'clock at Kerr County Abstract and Title, we close on our Earl Garrett campus. You'll recall that we purchased, or we're in the process of purchasing, we will have purchased it as of today, 424 Earl Garrett, which is a parking lot behind the police station, which can house up to 50 parking spaces. And then the building across the street, which is 550 Earl Garrett, which is 10,000 square foot building, that has 43 parking spaces. And and those properties right there, we have other properties on that street, but those properties are what will close this afternoon. We purchased this property, the whole thing initially, for $790,000. It's cost us over $500,000 to make it ADA compliant and put a new roof on it, but it is ready to go. So that those of you that do keep track of numbers, this is closing for a little over $1.3 million, which for a 10,000 square foot building and almost 100 parking spaces, 1/2 block from the downtown courthouse, is unheard of. That's right at $130 a square foot. So
Good.
Construction costs we figured would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 per square foot. So we're excited about closing on that property this afternoon. Anything else on comments? Very good. Let's move on to the agenda. Item 1.1, update and discussion regarding requirements for individuals interested in being appointed to fill the unexpired term for the Precinct 2 County Commissioner being vacated by Commissioner Moser. I put this on the agenda for a number of reasons, but mainly because, and I'm happy to share with y'all, and that's one for each of you. I need one of them back. We're sorry that Commissioner Moser, we're not sorry that he sold his ranch. We're glad that he made a profit. We believe in that. But at the same time, we're sad to lose him as our commissioner for Precinct 2. But his departure, his retirement from that position, and the reason he's retiring is because where he's moving to is not in Precinct 2, and the law requires that you live in Precinct 2. So the legal requirements are that he has to retire. There has been astonishing interest in this position. I've passed out to the commissioners. Now I'll hold it up so you can just see it. I've had 20 to date expressions of interest. Some formal, I see some that have already formally submitted their applications here, and others that have expressed interest in possibly submitting applications. And I think it's a great sign that this many people are truly interested in serving the people. These are thankless jobs, folks. If you don't believe me, come sit in my chair. But they're worthwhile, they're important. And if you heard in my prayer today, is we're praying for people that have a servant's heart to serve the public for the common good, not just any special interest group, but the common good. And so I'm happy to report to you the procedures that we're going to follow. We have a press release that's gone out to all the news outlets. But what we're going to do is, first of all, I want to go over the qualifications to serve on this job. I know this is not significant, but you have to be at least 18 years of age. And all but our new citizens down here, I think, qualify for that. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to have lived in Texas for at least 12 months. You have to have lived in the precinct for at least 6 months. You have to be registered to vote, and that includes you must not have been convicted of a felony or have been determined by a court with probate jurisdiction to be totally mentally incapacitated or partially mentally incapacitated without the right to vote. Those are the qualifications to serve as commissioner in Texas. And so with that, I've established the procedure that I'm going to follow on this, because this is a big responsibility. This is probably the most important thing that I'm going to do in my time as your county judge. And it's a growing experience. Don and I laughed when we first came on the court as the newbies that there's a secret playbook and they're not showing it to us. But over time, you learn the plays and you learn to work together. And I think for those of you that have been watching the court, you'll see that there has been a remarkable cohesion on this court as we've come together. We still disagree, and sometimes we disagree vocally, but we work together for the common good. And it's going to be important that whoever we bring in on this court be part of this team, because this is important for the people. And so what I wanted to do is keep this whole process as transparent as possible. So the first thing I'm doing is making sure that we leave the application period open long enough that people with interest or who are sitting on the fence not sure if they're interested have ample opportunity to apply. So I'm going to leave the applications open through August the 2nd. That's pretty much the end of the month. We've already had a number of people excited about it. We hope to have more. The second thing that I'm going to do is on August the 9th, I'm going to put on our agenda a personnel item that we can talk in executive session for this court, for the 5 of us. I'm going to share with them the people that have applied, and we'll have a discussion among ourselves, because we know one another, and various people on the court have different relationships with some of the people that have applied. And so we're going to use that institutional knowledge, the collective wisdom of the group, to try to come up with a short list. And following the meeting on the 9th, the folks that make the short list, I will interview personally, and the plan is to swear in the new commissioner on August the 23rd. Now, let me address Commissioner Moser's letter of resignation to me, which is still sitting in my desk drawer, unopened, as he commented to me the other day. He knows it's unopened. He put in there that he was going to retire on July the 23rd. Well, the law is not quite that simple. If you're an elected official, you are that elected official until your replacement is sworn in. Correct, Madam Attorney? Which means that, like it or not, you're stuck with us for about another month.
Okay.
So
I look forward.
And he can legally do that even though he is sold his place in Precinct 2, because he is a carryover office holder until we replace him. So you will continue to see Commissioner Moser sitting with us, participating as always, as we go forward. But I want to encourage everyone out there to please, if you have any interest, this is the time to express it so that we can make the best possible decisions we can for Kerr County. And I want to open the floor to my fellow commissioners as to the criteria and qualifications, and maybe just your sense of community values that you would like to see in your new commissioner.
I'd comment. I think it's important for people that are interested in serving, which is really good, to recognize what the duties of a county commissioner are. You go to the state law, it says approve budgets, and that's the biggest thing there is. But there's a lot more to it than that. And let me contrast it to the way the cities work, the way city organizations work. Most of them have, in some counties, have a manager, city manager. They do a lot of the work that we five do. So we have our hands on, our sleeves rolled up, and we administer the management of a lot of the activities that go on. Now, that's not to say the department heads and other elected officials don't also. So the other thing is we have to interface with, I think, 23 elected officials. So
24
elected officials.
I
So
know.
it's a different kind of job. So if you're interested, please understand what the job is. Think about your qualifications and your intent to fill this position. So I think that's the important thing. It's not a 9-to-5 job. Phone rings all the time, and that's okay. And I think I do like other commissioners do. When the phone rings in my office, it rings in my pocket at the same time. So, and my phone gets turned off at 10 o'clock at night. So that's the kind of thing it is. You have to be willing to commit, and I think willing to commit to meet those needs. So that's all I'll say.
A couple of comments. And to add to what you just said, Commissioner, and you have to have thick skin, because regardless of what your decisions are, you're going to make people mad, and there will be people that say very vicious things about you, and you have to be willing to say that's part of the job. And it takes not everyone can handle that, because you can't, I don't take it personal. My wife takes things a whole lot more personal than I do when she sees things in the paper and all this. I know that I'm doing what I think is best as long as I'm good in my own heart. That's what's important. I think it's the same for everyone who serves. A couple of other things, though, I wanted to mention that is interesting, and the court's at a really unique time right now. And assuming, well, there's no assumption on my part, but I'm not going to run for re-election. That's a done deal in my mind, my family's mind. I'm not sure if Commissioner Blue and Commissioner Harris are or not, or what their plans are, or the judge. He's shaking his head no. Bottom line is, there's a very high likelihood that in 5.5 years, no member of this current court will be here. And that's an interesting thing, because that hasn't happened probably in 50 years, that there's been that new of a court. So that's an interesting thing just to think about, and I think you have to look at other things I'm glad that I don't have to make this appointment. I'm glad it's up to the judge. That's one thing he didn't say. This is his choice. He can get input from us if he chooses, but this is an appointment made by the county judge solely. But I think you have to look at, you want someone who's just going to be a placeholder till the next election. That's an option. Or do you want someone who's going to be here for 20 years, or that, if assuming the person is reelected. I mean, that's a consideration. Do you want someone that is very tied to the city, or do you want a rural person? There are differences. We've had excellent commissioners on both sides, and probably bad commissioners on both sides. But I think that is a consideration. This court traditionally has had a lot of rural representation. It doesn't mean it has to. We've had Commissioner Williams lived in the city of Kerr and did a great job. Was a very good commissioner. So, but there are things to consider, and those are the main things I have. It's you have to look at the direction long term. It's not necessarily just yes, this is the best person. You have to look at, well, is this the right person for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, and where the court may be going.
I'll keep it simple. You know, I would like to see somebody with core values, honest, integrity, stuff like that. I mean, the rest will come. You'll figure it out. Like the judge said, there wasn't a playbook anybody gave us when we walked in here. But I know the judge and I talked. We wanted to be fully transparent on things, and I'm proud that we have been. Your core belief is what's important. The rest will work itself out. And all four of us, 5 of us, we do things different. There's not a cookie cutter mold the way I do things that will work for Commissioner Ballou, Moser, or Les. We all do it a little bit different, but we get it done. You know, be accessible to the people out there. That's important. Phone rings all the time. Be accessible. Lots of meetings, lots of meetings. So look at that. Look at that if you're considering.
Well, I would add to this discussion that whoever wants to throw their hat in the ring, and all of you that already have, read over very carefully what the actual job entails and try to stick to that, because there's a lot of things that people want to get you involved in that are not part of the job. And you need to know how to explain that that is not the gig. So know those responsibilities and then stick to those responsibilities. Remember, the taxpayer is the boss. So when the taxpayer calls you, you call the taxpayer back. That's my policy. And I'm going to tell you about Precinct 2. It's the hardest precinct in all of Kerr County. I've told Commissioner Moser that many times. You look at who you're representing, think about it long and hard. It's a tightrope. Precinct 1's different from Precinct 3, Precinct 4, wherever they are, way out there. And so
Half the county.
half the county. But seriously, it's a tough one to represent. And like Commissioner Letts said, if you got thin skin, you ought to scratch your name off the list right now. That's all I got.
Well, to follow up on what Commissioner Ballou just said, my parting comment is people are asking me, what am I looking for? I once heard a real estate agent tell me that when it came to buying property, it's always location, location, location. When it comes to local governance, it's local, local, local. And we are bombarded with state and national issues daily, multi times a day. And you've heard me say before, there's very little we can do about that other than have our own personal opinions about it, which, as you've seen, none of us are bashful about sharing. But at the same time, what I'm looking for is somebody who has the local contact, the local experience, the local focus, and is ready to be part of local government. So if is anyone who wants to address the court? Very good. Let's move on to item 1.2. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on a request from Centerpoint ISD to use Lions Park on October 2021 from 4 to 8 p.m. for the Centerpoint ISD homecoming event. The event will consist of games, bonfire by the Centerpoint Volunteer Fire Department, and a parade starting at Mosty Lane on FM 1350 and ending in Lions Park. We've got Cody Newcomb, Michael Ernie, and Charles Holt.
Cody Newcomb, Superintendent of Schools with Centerpoint ISD. I'm not going to take a lot of time. The agenda item pretty much explains what we want to do. It's a change of venue for us. We're trying to really increase participation and opportunity for our parents and community members to come back for homecoming. We haven't had a bonfire for years because of the burn ban, obviously. But in visiting with Chief Holt, Chief Ernie, we're not asking anything from the county other than the opportunity to use Lions Park on the 20th from 4 to 8. And with that, I'll let them tell their part of what they want to do.
So I think it's important to try to.
Let me interrupt.
Charles Holt?
Chief Charles Holt,
Yes, sir.
Centerpoint Volunteer Fire Department.
Yes, sir. I think it's important to try to get the history back into our community there and get some more community spirit. What better way than have a fun-filled week of the bonfire, the football games, and then the fish fry at the end of the week to kind of coincide with everything that we have going on. Between the fire department and the Chief Ernie, we can maintain all the roads, close down, we can move the brush, and stack all it up and do everything we need. We just need the park there that we can have the bonfire basically as a community center. So, and we'll stay there with it until it goes out, and we'll clean up all the remnants.
Question.
Yes, sir.
You're requesting from 4 to 8 p.m., but you need it for longer than that, so we need to know how long the park will be closed.
That's for the setup and takedown.
Yeah, that's just a setup and takedown. So it depends on how big the fire is. We can go ahead and put it out if you want to at 8, and then come back and clean up the rest that's there.
No, but you have to start earlier in the day.
So what we're looking for is to have basically like a community cleanup with a brush also. We'd like to have it to where they can stack the brush up, a week prior in advance and start building the fire like we've had in the years past.
So my question is, you want to close the park, we know from 4 to 8. So how much earlier than that do you want to close the park to the public so you can set up?
Yeah.
Simply stated,
Right.
as a general rule, anybody can go to the public park.
Absolutely.
Okay? That's not a problem. But if you want to use it exclusively, you come to the court to get permission.
Correct.
Now, we know your event's going to be from 4 to 8. What Commissioner Moser is saying is it's going to take some time to get it set up. So do you need it from noon? Do you need it from 10 o'clock that morning to get it set up? And then how much time do you need to go ahead and clean it up after everybody leaves?
So the setup of everything that's there would just be from 4 to 8. The only time that we need it before then would be for people to come in and haul brush. And that will take, upwards to a week. But it won't be closed to the public. We will put cones in the area that they will be able to put the brush.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's the same thing we've done in the past. It's been a few years since we've done it. We're just trying to get it back in there to get it done. And then the next day, the park can be opened. After the 8 o'clock, it can be open. Like I said, we'll be there just monitoring that section of it. All the rest of the stuff will be taken down.
So you're comfortable with closing it to the public beginning at 4 p.m. and not any earlier?
I am, yes, sir.
Well, I'm asking Mr. Kearney and...
Well, we can go earlier if you want to.
Now,
We
what do you
close at
need?
noon. Here's the issue.
I know we can go earlier, but what do you need?
So we have our students, all our key club and all that, they set up booths. And so they don't
How
get out of
about
school
noon?
till 3:30. I'm good with noon.
Okay,
Then
good.
Why don't we go noon to 9 o'clock?
Good. Noon to
That
9 o'clock.
Gives
you
us
got it.
plenty of time. I also
Okay.
want to point out this is in conjunction with the fire department's fish fry. So
Yeah.
it's going to be similar to all school reunion that we did this week
Right.
or last week, and then it'll be similar to that.
Okay, so I'll move for approval to close Lions Park on October the 20th from noon until 9 p.m. to the public for the use for the homecoming for Center Point. And request that the maintenance department post a notice at least a week in advance that park is going to be closed to the public at that time. Okay? So that's my motion.
And you're good with the second on that?
Yes, sir.
Motion been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Ballou to approve the homecoming event for Center Point ISD on October the 20th, 2020 from noon till 9 p.m. With notice to be posted in advance.
There you go.
Any discussion or questions?
Traditions are important, and I commend y'all for trying to kickstart this again. I think every community needs stuff like this, so hats off to y'all.
Okay, no other discussion. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank y'all very much.
Appreciate it.
Item 1.3, an update regarding FEMA individual assistance declaration. Deb Thomas. Did I lose him?
Oh, not too late.
Tell us about individual assistance from FEMA.
All right, Judge. Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners. This is kind of a winter storm report, just to kind of update you on where we stand at this point. Just a little background information from back in March. I had some information from the Texas Department of Insurance. The number of residential claims was 338, and this was insurance numbers paid out. Amount of losses paid was 1.2 million. The average claim paid was 3,700. For farm and ranch, the number of claims paid was 45. The amount of losses was $504,429. The average claim paid was $11,210. So if y'all remember, on June 24th, Kerr County was granted inclusion in the individual assistance declaration for Winter Storm Uri. Granted, we got in by the, yes, sir.
Let me stop you right there. I'm not sure everybody has heard that. You said, as you know. Yes, we know, but remind the public again. As of June the 24th, Kerr County qualifies for FEMA individual assistance.
Individual assistance, we've been included, and that is testimony to the citizens of Kerr County, because they got in there and they did 576 individuals surveys, and that data is the information that got us in. And granted, like I said, we got in by the skin of our teeth. We were one of 3 counties, along with Shackelford, and I forgot what the other county was, but there were only 3 counties that were included as add-ons into that individual assistance declaration. So people can go to, residents that have damage that are seeking FEMA assistance can go to www.disasterassistance.gov, or they can call an 800 number, and that number is 1-800-621-3362. Additionally, they can go to the Kerr County website, click on News and Announcements, and there's a press release. If you'll scroll down to the press release for June 25th, there are links for FEMA links on how to start the recovery process, the best way to send your disaster documents, and what to expect after applying in the appeals process. And all those documents are listed in both English and Spanish. Just some information that I got last week, and this is going to be updated on a weekly basis. For the Individuals and Households program, these are FEMA numbers. There's been 185 registrations for that. Inspections issued, meaning FEMA representatives are actually going to come out and either inspect the damage, or they're going to do it virtually on somebody's cell phone. There's been 38 out of that. There's been 31 inspections completed. The Individuals and Household Referrals program has been 129. Individuals and Households programs paid out. What the FEMA has paid out so far is $14,693, and that average payout is $1,836. I expect that number to go up as we get more people that get paid out. Housing assistance referrals are 125. Let's see, all the housing assistance amount comes to $13,317. Average housing assistance is $22.19. Repairs paid, total repairs was $10,919. Repairs average has been $2,183. $2,183 is what they paid out. I really expect that number to go up. Other needs assistance has been $1,375. The average has been $687.88. I'm just giving you these numbers so you'll know that Kerr County residents are getting some type of assistance from FEMA for their damages.
And I want to thank you, Doug, because this has been going on for the last 4 months. And there's been a lot of encouragement for us to keep fighting to try to get these individual assistance benefits. And Doug has tirelessly stayed on this until we are one of 3 of the final counties that gets this assistance approved. And Doug, thank you very much.
No problem, Judge. I was just persistent, but as far as what got us through, it's those 576 individual assistance surveys. If we hadn't been persistent with that, getting those numbers in there, I don't think we would have made it.
Doug, can you explain a little bit about, you mentioned all the different the assistance amounts that people have been getting, the total amount, and then the average. Is this just a check that they're receiving in addition to any other, just a check? Or?
Yeah, it's just a check.
And it's, is it, if they have insurance, is it in addition to insurance, or is
It's in addition to insurance. It's generally what insurance doesn't cover.
It's like deductibles and stuff you told us one day.
Well, you're not going to get your deductible back, only under certain circumstances, but you'll get a portion. You can get some money back, yes. You won't get all of it.
And on the ranch payments, which were, I think they were 11,000, 14,000, something like that, is that largely due to livestock, including exotics that were lost?
That's I'm guessing that's what it is. I'm assuming it is because I'm sure some of those folks that have farming ranches, those exotics that's their bread and butter. That's how they make their money. So I'm assuming that's included.
No action to be taken on this. Any other discussion? Again, thank you, Doug.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a great day.
Item 1.4, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept a restricted donation in the amount of $725 from Kerrville Pets Alive to the Kerr County Animal Services for purchase of 100 PetLink Data March microchips for KPA-sponsored chips for owner reclaimed pets and for special microchipping events. Shelley Sandy.
Good morning. My name is Shelley Sandy, and I'm treasurer of Kerrville Pets Alive, located at 414 Clay Street here in Kerrville. Based on the success of our June 12th free pet microchip event held at Glory Community Garden, and due to the increasing number of owners who are opting to accept the offer of a free microchip when reclaiming a lost pet from Kerr County Animal Services, the initial early June order of 100 microchips purchased with the donation made by Kerrville Pets Alive has been exhausted. Accordingly, Kerrville Pets Alive would like to continue these efforts by making a second $725 restricted donation to KCAS for the purchase of an additional 100 Data Mars microchips. These microchips will continue to serve as a restricted stock supply at KCAS to offer a free microchip to owners when they reclaim their pet, notably a pet that has already been impounded and thereby a proven flight risk, as well as for use at future Kerrville Pets Alive hosted microchip events. We are currently looking at local event calendars for opportunities to host additional events and appreciate the county's continued support in our efforts to quickly reunite lost pets with their families. Thank you.
Ready to move for acceptance of the donation?
Oh, okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Ballou to accept the donation. Any discussion?
I have a question. Shelley, by restricted donation, you mean specific for the...
Specific
chips?
for purchase
Okay.
of the microchips,
All right.
that's all.
Thank
That we've already kind of made an arrangement with Reagan and the staff at KCAS of the purpose of these
Perfect.
chips and trying to just get them chipped.
Good.
Get them chipped and get them
Another
home.
comment is thank you all for your continued support. We appreciate it.
No kidding.
We're trying.
You know you're doing.
We seem to get a little bit better result when we collaborate, don't we?
Huh?
We get
Yeah.
better result when we collaborate.
Yeah, and the public likes free. So, always a good thing.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you,
I
Shelley.
don't see Reagan. Who should I leave this with today? Oh, there. I told you.
I've got a couple of timed items at 9:30, but I know I've got people out here, and I'm trying to get service to the public first. Let me ask, we've got a deal for the airport at 9:30, and then we have a public meeting for the annual record archival plan. Who all's here for those two things? Okay. Who's here for the 1.5 on the Veterans Advisory Committee?
Okay. Two people back
Let's
there.
go ahead and take that. Just try to get them out of the way. So let me go ahead and call 1.5. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the quarterly report from the Veterans Advisory Committee. Gary Nolan.
Good morning, Gary Noller, 140 Ray Drive, Center Point, Precinct 2. With me today is Byron Warren, he's also Precinct 2. Absent today is Vicki Marsh and Bill Cantrell, also Precinct 2. They have other commitments. I'll try to be brief here today. You may have already received the written report from Jenna Sanchez on the quarterly report that just ended June 30. I'm not going to go through the report and read everything there, but I did some quick scratching on paper just on one of the line items on there, which is compensation granted by the Veterans Administration to veterans or their survivors or dependents in that quarter. And that comes in two forms. One of them is monthly, what they will get every month with cost of living increases as long as they live, probably, and then what's retroactive, which is the amount of money that's paid going back to the time that they started their claim. If you started your claim 6 months ago and they awarded it today, you're going to get 6 months retroactive. That amount of money, the way I figured it out, is about $1.5 million a year. And I think that's a considerable amount of money. If there was an employer who'd come to town and say they're going to put $1.5 million payroll into this town, and that's tax-free. So if you want to count federal taxes being paid by those employees, it's got to be more than $1.5 million. That would be probably an achievement that would get the front page of the local newspapers. So I think it's always important that we keep that in mind, that the economic benefit that the county service officers bring and continue to bring, and then also what does that do to the people who receive that money? How does that help them? In some cases, they're going to buy a new car, and in some cases, they're going to buy a battery for their old car. And depending on how much money they get. So we certainly want to extend our appreciation to the Commissioners Court for their continued support of the county service officers, and want to recognize Jenna for the work that she's done. Marty's been gone for a while on active duty with the Air Force. Jenna has kept the office up. There are other veteran service officers in the area, but these veterans and dependents and survivors have chosen to come to the county service officer. And I'll say that the county services office here in Kerr County have an excellent, very excellent performance and achievement record, and they're known, and people search them out. Jenna was also involved highly with the Memorial Day ceremony that was here at the courthouse this year. It was probably the 20 years I've lived here in Kerr County, I'm going to say it's the best one I've attended as far as being how well it was planned out and how well it was executed. And it needs to be somebody in charge, and Jenna took charge of that. And if you were down here that day, she looked like she was in charge, and that's very important. And I certainly appreciate.
I think the Air Force trained her to do that, didn't they?
Yes, but and she had help, and we certainly want to extend our appreciation to the Commissioners Court for everything that they do to help facilitate that program. And I know that Shane was here with facilities. They put chairs up. They were controlling parking. We had, the services that we needed out there, electricity. They usually mow the grass and rake things up real nice, and the Sheriff's Department had the building open so that the guests that came had access to the inside of the building here for the restrooms and things like that. So there was help. Vicki Marsh represented the advisory committee and helped kind of keep things lined out, organized too. And we had some new people show up this year that was very thankful for that. A couple of other items. One of them is the Veterans Administration is continuing to give vaccinations for people who want them. As we know, it's pretty much coming to a standstill now across the nation, but any veteran, the VA has opened that up. They're not quite as selective. It's any veteran, whether they're enrolled in health care or not, the caregiver to that veteran, and then spouses. So we want to make sure people know that that's available out there. Last thing I'm going to say is we want to acknowledge Commissioner Moser for your work over a considerable amount of time as liaison from the Commissioner's Court to the Veterans County Service Office. We appreciate what you have done because we believe that you've got the heart to make sure that the county has done all that it could possibly do to keep the office running, to keep it funded, to make sure it's got the proper staff. The staff are doing the job they're supposed to be doing. So we hope that you don't totally leave Kerr County, and we can see you at the Center Point once or twice a year at the fish fry or the barbecue. But we do want to extend our appreciation to you for what you do.
Thank you, Gary.
And Byron's got a few words he wants to say. Thank you very much.
Byron Warren, 2944 Dry Hollow, Kerrville. I'm wearing my hat this morning, not only from our advisory committee to the Commissioner's Court, but also as the commander of the military order, the Purple Heart. I'd like to recognize and thank Commissioner Moser for his effort and support to the Veteran Service Officer and to veterans of Kerr County. I wanted to make sure that he understands from our small point of view, we really appreciate him before he ran away. And if we can embarrass him more, we'll do it. But we really appreciate your commissioner and your support and your attending meetings and your input to some of our discussions were very, very forthright and helpful. And again, from the veterans community, simplify.
Well, let me comment if I may. Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Gary, for the kind words. Let me reflect on one thing that the court made a decision when we established Veteran Service Officer. The concept and the intent was for it to be of benefit to the citizens of all Kerr County, particularly the veterans. But in a quantitative sense, we hope that it would be proven that the additional revenue coming into the county by having benefits provided to veterans that perhaps they didn't know about or whatever would compensate for the salary and the expense of the veteran service officer. So far, I can think we can clearly say it has. Okay, and I think what Gary presented earlier and what Jenna presented in her report clearly shows that. So I think it's a job well done. And the second thing is thank the veterans, the committee, the advisory committee has been superb. The 4 people on that work diligently on that, and they take the job seriously. And I think with them, it's 1 + 1 is equal to 3 between the advisory committee and the veteran service officers. So thank you guys for what you did too.
Thank you. Is there any action we need to take on this?
No action, just a report.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm juggling things around because we had some of these timed items in between. I want to make sure I don't have anybody waiting out there in the hallway on this public hearing. So I'm going to call 1.8. Public hearing regarding the county clerk's annual record archival plan in accordance with local government code. Is there anyone outside? There's no one? Okay, well, I call the meeting to order, and no one has appeared to address it, so the meeting will be adjourned. Let's go back and pick up the other 9:30 item, which is 1.7, and I apologize, Tracy, I'm doing the best I can with these. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding a resolution to reallocate $1.9 million allocated to the Kerr County Airport. Mark Moser and Commissioner Moser.
Go ahead, Mark, if you will.
Thank you, Commissioner Moser. Commissioners, Mark Moser, President of the Kerr County Airport Board. I addressed this court about 2 weeks ago on this subject. We had just, I won't use the word lost, some funding was postponed. As many of you know, Texas is a block grant state, which means the funds come from the feds and they funnel through TxDOT and then they disperse the funds out. And there are a variety of different grants that are given out, and with those we have grant assurances saying we will run the airport a certain way so we don't have to pay those monies back. Some of the funds are given out annually and some every 5 years, some every 10 years. We're in the queue for some funding that was given out on lesser time frame, and it involves long-term planning and structure and about 10 airports. 5 of these 10 airports had larger amounts, larger, close to $2 million or more, and Fredericksburg and Kerrville were 2 of those airports. This funding, according to the Director of TxDOT, has been delayed to us. They're going to kick the can down the road a year, maybe 2. Along with that, it's moved back our master plan funding, which I've talked about recently, which is required. The master plan is required by the FAA to be able to receive any funding. So this fund apparently at the last minute on the State House floor was given in the amount of $15 million, from what I understand, was given to Odessa Airport in Midland, Odessa, which is the smaller airport of the 2. There's the Midland Airport, which is a large international airport, and the Odessa Airport. And the purpose, from what I understand, is to lengthen the runway by 2,000 feet and build a larger hangar for the use of Border Patrol. And it's been all over the, yes.
I'm going to interrupt, Mark.
Sure.
Point of privilege. I grew up in Midland, and they used to call it the Midland Odessa Airport, and Odessa didn't ever put a penny in it, I guarantee you. And there is an Ector County Airport, which is, Odessa is the county seat, and that's the new airport that they built that they're trying to make competitive. Just to clarify already.
Now, the stories that I've heard are from the newspaper and from other people's opinion, and the actual truth is somewhere in between. So I don't know the full final stories of why these funds were moved. I do know there's a lot of effort from counties and a variety of leaders to get the funding returned, however that may be. The director of TxDOT Aviation, it greatly affects TxDOT Aviation. His name's Rob Harmon. He's told me that they're working on it very diligently. We've written letters to the Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governor, as has Gillespie County. I know that. I believe their county judge has written similar letters. So we hope this funding will be returned to us in some way, shape, or form. I've heard some confidence from TxDOT that will happen. So as far as you're concerned, I know we have, it's a 10% match is what it is. And it's interesting to know that their state representative did not know about the funding beforehand. It surprised them. The airport board, which is an advisory board, there's a little bit different structure. They give them advice according to them, usually after the fact, why they did something wrong or right. They didn't have any idea about it. Even the CFO of Border Protection knew nothing about it. So the real reason is really somewhat of a mystery to me. But the goal is to get the funding.
So basically what we have here is the proposed resolution that says that these funds were taken from, planned funds were taken from the Kerr County Airport and other airports around the state to benefit a single airport at Midland, Odessa, or whatever the airport's calling it.
County.
Okay. So this resolution is to, and I'll not read the whole thing, okay? This resolution is to say this court requests that the state reconsider this and to let our airport and the other airports proceed as planned previously with TxDOT Aviation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Briefly, the number one most vital asset we have at the airport is the long main runway. There's no question about that. And this funding was going to be used for maintenance of that runway and our ramp. Our ramp rally needs caulking. Without that, the ramp starts failing.
Right. Okay. So that's the resolution. So, Judge, instead of reading the whole thing, I'd make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented to the court.
I'll second with a correction.
Okay? A correction?
Typo.
Typo, okay.
The last whereas, it should say notices received that these projects will be moved, will be moved.
Okay, with that change, I'll make the motion, okay?
And I'll second.
A motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the resolution as presented with making move from present to past tense. Any other discussion?
Just a comment, just a correction on the little slight thing. The resolution only refers to the Kerr County Airport, not reinstating the funding to the other airports.
Right, correct. Thank you.
My question is about timing. If there's still money that's been pledged, as you just stated, then it's a question of when it would come. And that's what I think I'm hearing.
Well, the goal is that the timing's the same, it's kept as planned. And that's the goal of TxDOT Aviation also.
But there's money earmarked, it's just been postponed for now.
Right.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's what they told me.
Okay. So we're trying to get it into what time frame?
It's the same, keep it the same.
Which is, for the record,
I'm sorry, 2022.
next year.
Yeah.
Well, and so that everyone is focused on what's happening in Austin, there will be another special legislative session to determine the allocation of block grants that were awarded to the state as a result of the pandemic. So
Correct.
there will be money being allocated in Austin within the next few months.
Correct, and that is the goal, to get it in that session.
So timing is good.
The timing's
Good,
really
good.
good.
Okay, any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thanks, Mark.
Support.
Okay. Tracy, we've got a problem with the agenda today, but let's get you up and get this one done. Item 1.6, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to authorize a nominating committee to seek nominations and submit an application to the Kerrville Chamber of Commerce for a county employee to participate in the Kerr County Leadership Class of 2021-22. Application fee to be paid out of the current year's budget. We do this every year, right?
We do, with the exception of last year. So I'm just coming back to the court to have you authorize that process to take place again. And the nominating committee has generally been myself, the county attorney, and HR director.
I move to continue with the same process one more year.
Second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by
Harris.
Commissioner Harris.
Out there.
It's already been a long morning. Already been a long morning. To continue sponsoring a representative from the county to participate in the Kerr County Leadership Class next year. Any other discussion?
What's the amount?
$700.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, I apologize, but we need to take a break. It's almost 10 o'clock. Let's take a 10-minute break and be back here at 10 minutes after 10. Order. Executive privilege, I'm going to call item 1.30 on the volunteer fire departments. It's consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for August 16 to discuss the creation of Kerr County Emergency Services District Number 4. I see Lee here. I didn't want y'all to have to wait another hour, hour and a half just to be able to get a public hearing set. So I'm, Mr. Reeves.
Good morning, gentlemen. On July 8th, 2021, a petition was filed by Kirk Griffin and Robert Taylor with the Kirk County Clerk, Jackie Dowdy. This was to allow the creation of an emergency services district. Such district would be known as Kerr County Emergency Services District Number 4. The petition consisted of 28 pages and 150 signatures. 11 such signatures were declared invalid by my office, 8 for not being registered voters in the proposed district, and 3 were not landowners. The petitioners are required to have 100 qualified signatures, and I deemed it to be sufficient with the 139 signatures. Texas Health and Safety Code 775 requires that at the next regular or special session of the Commissioners Court held after the petition is filed with the county clerk, the commissioners shall set a place, date, and time for the hearing to consider. There are specific timelines to place this issue before the voters on the next uniform election day, which is November 2nd of this year. Since time is of the essence, I respectfully request that a public hearing be scheduled at 9 a.m. August 16th. I realize that is not a normal court meeting, but August 16th is the last day we can call this election to get it on the ballot for this year.
I move for approval. Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Blue, to call a public meeting for August 16, which will be a special Commissioners Court meeting of this year for the creation of Kerr County Emergency Services District Number 4. Any discussion? Bob, we're happy to have a special meeting in order to be able to get this ESD off the ground.
Yeah.
So, anything else? Those in favor, raise your hand. Public meeting is set. Lee, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We appreciate what you're doing. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my 9:45 agenda item from Commissioner Moser. He's allowed us to pass over that and move on to our 10 o'clock docket so we can get everything else wrapped up. Item 1.21 is a public hearing regarding the installation of no parking signs on FM 1340 at Wagon Wheel, low water crossing over the North Fork of the Guadalupe River. I convene this public meeting. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of that topic? Okay, if you would, have you turned in your...
I turned in my form on Friday, and then I signed in, and then I also gave all of you gentlemen some points.
Okay, let's find it here.
Thanks for what she's supposed to have.
Okay, I think I've got everything here.
So my points say consistency, cost.
Excuse me, just a minute. We've got to make sure we got everybody. The first one I have is Clinton Morris. Is he here on that?
They are in traffic on 39. I was
Okay.
about 40
Okay.
minutes.
It's a zoo out there. I heard there's like a 45 minute delay on Highway 39.
There
Good
is.
luck getting home, Judge.
Well, hopefully by then. Yeah. Then the next one I have here is Dana Armitstead.
That's me.
Okay. You may proceed.
Okay, great. So the handouts I gave you were consistency, cost, enforcement, and priorities. So hopefully you have those and their photographs.
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. My name is Dana Armitstead. I'm a resident of Hunt, Texas. I've lived at the Wagon Wheel Crossing for 21 years. The first point, so this is all regarding consistency, cost, enforcement, and priorities. My first point is, shouldn't the signage be consistent at every crossing? Since the ultimate effect of this signage could be to increase traffic at other crossings, shouldn't there be parking signage then at every Hunt crossing? The popularity of these crossings is very cyclical. The Benson crossing was the hot spot for years. Now Wagon Wheel is. Next year and post-pandemic, there's no telling what that's going to look like and what crossing that may hit and what kind of traffic hazards that may affect. So my question to Mr. Hastings is, have all the Hunt crossings been surveyed for parking issues for the exact same concerns? If so, what is the cost associated with that? Has it been considered how the Wagon Wheel crossing handling differently will be perceived by the community? Also of note, over 10 years at a minimum, there have been no incidents at Wagon Wheel crossing. One single motorcycle accident, single driver fatality, zero, not related at all to parking issues. My biggest point is, does the Sheriff's Department have the capacity or the bandwidth to enforce this? I know that the department does not currently have the bandwidth to enforce the pervasive immediate issue of dangerous trespassing causing liability to owners out there. By that I mean there's dangerous bluff, constant diving into shallow water from an 8-foot bluff. I've witnessed people throwing toddlers off this bluff without floaties or anything all day long. So how would the Sheriff's Department all of a sudden have the manpower to police something that poses far less immediate danger to the community? To that same public safety point, I've shared these photos of the crossing itself. Badly neglected road structure. The crossing is a disaster. Wagon Wheel is the only water crossing on the North Fork that has not been repaved. It is in very poor condition and badly in need of repair. This poses far more of a daily safety issue for the Hunt community than the parking issue. So in summary, I'm requesting today that the crossings all be surveyed for these same safety issues. Then the overall resulting cost and burden on our Sheriff's Department be evaluated before approving what I feel is a short-sighted initiative. Thank you again for your time and your concern about the safety of the Hunt community.
Thank you, Ms. Armitstead. Anyone else here to appear at this public meeting? Okay, the people's names that I have here, I have a Kathy Freeman. Okay. Have y'all filled out your speaker forms?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I filled out something this morning and I filled out something
And
on
what-
my phone.
And your name is?
Kathy Freeman.
Okay, that's what I just called, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, you may speak.
Yes, sir. What I have to say is very short. Dictionary.com considers a park an area of land, usually in largely natural state for the enjoyment of the public, having facilities for rest and recreation, often owned and set apart and managed by a city, state, or nation. To Dana's point, is there manpower to have this a park? Okay, I'm not saying it's a park. We have a park in Hunt, Texas, which is Schumacher. And we have witnessed the traffic going down from Schumacher and moved out to Wagon Wheel. We actually have counts. And the Schumacher has trash cans, tables, shelters. It is suitable for a park. It is a park. And Wagon Wheel Crossing is a farm to market, as are all the crossings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Do we have anyone else to speak on this topic? Your name, sir?
I'm Clinton Morse.
Yeah.
My wife and I both filled out forms.
Okay, I've got you here. I've got Clinton and Vivian Morse.
Thank you.
Like Dana and Kathy and some others, we live close to the crossing, so whatever's done there really will impact our place of residence. I was going to make comments about the signage, the proposed signage requiring traffic to park on the southeast side of 1340 as it impacts our driveway. But I'll just dispense with that because I think a lot of people there are just as impacted. From a public safety standpoint, I think it would be well for the commissioners to take a strong look at that. If public signs are placed, to the west of 1340, southwest, requiring the sunbathers to park over on the southeast side. That'll, of course, force the parked cars further up or further down 1340. And to me, that's a very dangerous situation. And not just to me. People recognize that out there. It's a very dangerous crossing. It doesn't appear to be dangerous, but as you approach 1340 from Hunt, you're going through a descent. And the curve there going across the low water bridge is a lot stronger. It's a lot more of a curve than what people really think. And I think people underestimate how much of a curve that they're approaching. There have been instances where drivers have lost control of their cars, and I know this personally, from personal experience. But with people parking on the southeast side of 1340, they're going to have to cross over to go to the west side of the river. Now, there are some bathers that do go, groups that go onto the east side of the river, for sure. But the vast majority of them go to the west side of the river because of the dam there. Lutz East's Dam is a very great place for swimmers. And so they're going to have to cross that 1340 to get over to that side of the river. And it's not just one lone bather walking across 1340. There are a lot of people that have been showing up. One day I counted 34 cars parked along 1340, and it was like a carnival out there. And they're carrying large Coleman containers, they're carrying lawn chairs, they're carrying canopy tents that you can put in the riverbed, and it's fun for them. You know, I understand that. It's a river. Hibachis, dragging kids along, dogs. It's a lot of traffic going across 1340. And I've been across when people are showing up, some people are leaving, more people show up. You've got to pick your way across that descent across the bridge so that you don't hit anybody. I can tell you that the traffic has gotten worse and worse on 1340. And I'm not just talking about the people to go out and visit the river. I'm talking about construction pickups, heavy construction trucks. I understand there's the subdivision going up and divide, so there's a lot of heavy equipment going up and down 1340. And it's a blind curve. It's a blind curve. When you're going down towards that crossing, you don't see very much beyond it as you approach. And they are going at a high rate of speed. I'm surprised at how fast people take that curve. Motorcycles. It's a big scenic route for a lot of motorcyclists. It's beautiful out there. But it's just, I think, a dangerous situation. And it would be good to take a real strong look at that, because as long as people are having fun out there, they're going to spread the word and people are going to pile on. So I'm going to end this, and I think my husband will have some comments about trying to limit that. Thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you, Ms. Morris.
Sure. May it please the court, my name is Clinton Morse. I'm here in representing myself. Our property adjoins the Wagon Wheel Crossing. I want to first thank the commissioners for the attention that they have given to this problem, and in particular Don Harris, our commissioner, for all the support that he has given the community. I also support the efforts of our county engineer to establish some no parking signs that he has clearly studied carefully at the crossing. I think that given the history of what we had to deal with in the past, those no parking signs would have made the crossing safer. However, I'm also here to respectfully advise the court that the problem has gotten much worse this summer. 2 years ago, for example, on a Saturday afternoon, you might have 6 or 8 cars out there and maybe 20 people. This past year, when we had COVID, people didn't have any place to go, so they started trying to find places on the river. And I was astounded to count one day 17 cars out there. This was last year. This year, I hope that with this COVID subsiding, that people would go elsewhere. Well, on July the 3rd, there were 30 cars out there. I counted 28 cars and 2 motorcycles. And this has been fairly typical. last Saturday, there were 22 cars out there. And they're all parked in front of people's property, not ours. Well, not really ours, because we have about 5 acres down by the crossing that we keep as inhospitable as possible with boulders and cedar and brush. But so they park there, it doesn't bother us. And frankly, our property is not really adversely affected. But our neighbor's property is. When you've got a whole front yard where people have parked their cars in front of your property, and with 30 cars out there, you can imagine the number of people, and my wife has certainly explained what's going on out there. This has become a public park, and it is not designed for that. And here's my recommendation. There are 2 kinds of signs that I always follow. One is handicap parking, and the second is tollway zone. What if the county were simply to put up some signs out there that say no more than 15 cars in the vicinity of the crossing? That's easy for the sheriff to go out and count, and it would solve the overcrowding problem, both the safety problem for all these cars and people milling back and forth, and it would mean that our neighbors would not have their use and enjoyment interfered with by the overcrowding. I did count last week, just for one of the speakers here talked about, well, we need to survey every single crossing. There's virtually no one at any of the other crossings other than Hunt and Schumacher. None. Last week, though, when there were 22 cars at Wagon Wheel, there were 3 cars at the Hunt crossing that has all kinds of parking. That's the problem. At the Benson crossing last week, there were 3 cars. And so I don't think that it is going to be unfair for the commissioners to say, well, we got to spread this out. And to me, that's a way to solve all the problems, the safety problems, the interference with our neighbors' use and enjoyment of their property. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on this topic?
I just had one point to add. I've lived there, like I said, 21 years. The crossings
Stand up
are
so we can hear you.
cyclical. The crossings are cyclical. Benson was maxed out up until about 2015. It shifted to Wagon Wheel. So the hot spots are cyclical, and I think we have to bear that in mind. Being very cognizant, though, of Mr. Morse's comments, I think his recommendation is a great idea and a great answer key.
Yes, Ms. Freeman?
I'd just like to add one more thing. I want you to imagine you own land there and imagine the trash, the diapers, the beer cans that have been left there. And if we're going to make it some sort of, leave it as some sort of park, where will there be facilities? There is facilities at Schumacher. There is facilities at Hunt Crossing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further at this public meeting? Very well, then we will be adjourned. And the next item on the agenda is item 1.22. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to authorize the Texas Department of Transportation to install no parking signs on FM 1340 at the Wagon Wheel Low Water Crossing over the North Fork of the Guadalupe. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. Wagon Wheel Crossing is the low water crossing in the vicinity of the 1700 block of FM 1340 in Hunt. Although FM 1340 is maintained by TxDOT, and they have received requests to address the safety of pedestrians using the river at this location because it has become a popular swimming hole. The use of regulatory signs must be authorized and approved by the Kerr County Commissioners Court. That's why we're here today. Even though it's a state highway, even though that's under their jurisdiction, they will not place regulatory signs for no parking unless it's approved by the court. Members of TxDOT, Kerr County Sheriff's Office, Kerr County Engineering Department, Kerr County Road and Bridge Department, and the Commissioner of Precinct 4 met with the resident owner of 1699 FM 1340, Mr. Clinton Morse on multiple occasions to evaluate the aforementioned safety concerns, specifically parking on both sides of the road in and around the bridge. The conclusion was that the use of no parking signs on either side of the Wagon Wheel low water crossing bridge would enhance pedestrian and vehicle safety if placed as follows. The northeast bound side of FM 1340 from the bridge northeast to a point approximately 300 feet, and the southwest bound side of FM 1340 from the bridge southwest to a point approximately 275 feet. The county engineer recommends that the court consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on this item at the pleasure of the court.
Charlie, let me ask you a question. How's this different than the crossing at Brink's Crossing on the Guadalupe River in Precinct 2? There, I think we have a similar situation here where no parking signs are there. And even with the no parking signs within proximity to the crossing itself, I've counted 60 cars there at any given time. So it's a place people see that they can get in the river at the crossing. We can't keep them from getting in the river at the crossing. It's a navigable stream, believe it or not, okay? So people have the right to get into the river, and they're going to. So is this exactly the same situation we have at Brink's Crossing?
It's the same situation.
Yeah, okay. So there are a lot of places in the county that experience this same type of thing. So it's too bad people have to carry their coolers and everything down from a distance away from the river at Brink's Crossing, but they still do it. I mean, even with the no parking signs there are 60 automobiles there on a time when people are there enjoying the river. And to my knowledge, ask the county attorney, but we can't keep them out of the river. We can just control the parking, control the traffic, safety. So,
Is that the legal issue, that we can control parking, but we can't control their access to the river, right?
Well, if it's a navigable stream, they can have access.
That's right. Well, the Guadalupe is a navigable stream. We all know this. And but we do have the authority to regulate parking. None of these places, whether it's Brink's, whether it's Wagon Wheel, have been designated as any kind of county park or public park. No. It's a public access point. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Have to have, Clint and I have talked about this, God, it seems like 2 years now, Clint, going back and forth. We discussed it and what have you. We had TxDOT come in and talk about it. And the bottom line, we can do things on the side of safety. And we had the sheriff out there looking at it and what have you, and along with Clint. And, this is one of the frustrating things. We were talking about filling this Precinct 2 commissioner down the road. There's a lot of things that people think we can do that we can't. And there's a lot of frustration. And if I had beautiful property like y'all have right there, that would drive me crazy. I know, Dana, you get a lot of people actually trespassing, and that's frustrating. But our hands are tied in a lot of regards. And I think after getting everybody out there looking at this, I think we've come out with the best next step. And that's restricting some of this parking on the side of safety. Now, maybe that'll discourage some people where they can't. Basically, you're taking half the parking away. And people still want to come. They're going to have to walk a lot further. Well, isn't that your understanding, Charlie?
Yes, sir. I think that's what we'll see happen.
Okay. And TxDOT, they want us to give it the okay before they put the signs up, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna move for approval, and hopefully it helps.
I have a question. Is that in line with what would you
Brink's.
referring to? The lamp passes or something? There's another river in our precinct, and I think you were describing that had 60 cars. Is that in line, or did they move the traffic back? Or did they just leave?
It looks, on the photograph here, it looks like the same. Same narrow bridge, public access, very enjoyable, you know.
I think she's asking if you park in a line, they just park one after the other down there.
Yeah,
No, it's similar, right?
Yeah.
It's similar.
It's a similar.
Okay, my question is, okay, where is that place in your precinct? There's a river.
Well, it's sort of across from the airport down to the
Okay,
river,
whatever
okay?
that, crossing one, okay? It has 60 people. Are you pushing the traffic back?
Pushing the parking back.
Yes, sir.
Off the
As-
bridge.
You're moving it back from the bridges onto other people's, in front of their property, further back. So they gotta work for, that's, I believe, what you're suggesting. Is that not right?
The answer is
Push the
yes.
traffic back.
Yes.
Okay. Did you do that at the crossing one, which I described?
Say again, I'm sorry.
Yes, I think I can answer your question, is that it didn't decrease the traffic or the people that want to use it, but it made it safer.
Did you, but you did move it back?
Yes.
Yes.
You did move it back?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and, so there's a lot more inebriated people walking down the road, and so,
Well, the answer is, I don't know the answer to that, if they're more inebriated or not. But somebody mentioned trash and diapers and things. We had to put up a lot of cans. Upper Guadalupe River Authority, in concert with the county, pay to have the trash picked up. Constables patrol it to make a visibility of people, you know, not violating the environment and also not violating the parking. So it's so far, it's worked. It's more of a hindrance for people to get to the river, but it's made it safer. So.
Yeah.
Can I just ask real quick, it's kind of imperative, but it makes no point to move forward on this, approving this, unless Sheriff Letha determines whether or not he is able to enforce it on a regular basis.
Don't answer it.
The court passes here today, you know, we will enforce any signs that are posted, but I just want to let you know, I can't tell you how quick. I mean, we will prioritize our calls. There is a guy assigned to that western district, so we will enforce them if they're put up and passed. Yes, ma'am.
There's one deputy for 2/3 of the county out
Yes,
there.
sir.
That's what we have.
And Constable Precinct 4 can also enforce it.
Sure.
Yes,
Precinct
definitely. We
2 does a
can
lot.
get with Brad and see if he'll help us out with that.
Right.
So I just wonder if we could marry the enforcement of the trespassing and the liability of jumping off the bluff at the same time.
Yeah, if we get a call, yes, ma'am, we'll go out there. As far as the 15 vehicles, like you mentioned, I'd have to defer to Heather. I don't know if we can put a number like that or not.
So you're going to tow away number 2 car after 16 and 17 park? How are you going to know?
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
It's almost
whoever's last
unenforceable.
in line, the furthest away from the.
Well, if you have
from the
a-
river, got there last.
If the sign says past this point, or whatever, and that could easily be figured out.
Now, you can establish a point,
Yeah. So
but I
that's
don't
it.
think you can establish a number.
What I'm curious about is, it's really a difficult thing to put a crosswalk at any of these, where people actually obey it, but to have something painted on the road so that drivers see that there's a crosswalk there. I'm concerned about the little ones crossing these roads, getting away from mom and dad. That concerns me more than any of the property issues or anything else, the safety of these kids out there.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Right.
I drive past to the Ingram Lake at least 2, if not 4 or 6 times a day, depending on where I'm going. And I'm terrified every time I go through there.
Yeah.
And they've got it.
Where's this?
Ingram Lake on 39.
Yes, absolutely.
do they have no loitering? Is there not a precedent for no loitering signs on bridges?
Let me tell you a story.
I don't know.
Where I live on Upper Turtle Creek,
Yeah.
the sign is regularly removed that says no jumping off the bridge. They just take the sign, lay it down. When they get through, they put the sign back up. They clean up after themselves. There's never any trash there, so it's a truce. So that's kind of a little community thing that happens out there on Upper Turtle Creek. It's understood.
And just as a point of humor, I live out on 39, and we're driving through there, coming back from the Center Point Volunteer Fire Department barbecue. And there's a sign that says, "Pass with care. It's been hit, it's leaned over, and it's hanging by one screw." And we just started laughing as we're driving down the highway. They hit it. People do not pay attention to any of the traffic signs that we put up out in the county.
I would say that every one of our places where people go to swim like that has its own personalities that show up. It has its own characteristics. Each one is different as far as I can tell. They have a sameness to them, which is the diapers and beer cans left behind. But each one has to be, I think, approached differently. A one size fits all doesn't really work.
I think once they put these signs up, if it's monitored, either by the constable or sheriff department, right off the bat, put some teeth in it, it might be okay. We might see a little positive movement. But if we don't get to it this year and wait till next year, try to force, then it's, they're not going to pay attention to it.
Mark?
I've been driving across I'm resident of Precinct 2. I've been driving across Briggs Crossing the last 10 years, 2 to 4 times a day. So I saw it before and after the signage. And there's no perfect answer. You still have little ones running back and forth across the river to slide under the river, and I think it should be like 3 mile-an-hour speed limit, which is what I drive. I'm scared of a little one running out from a parked car. I drive slow throughout the whole area. But I will say it's greatly improved. The trash barrels, it's all greatly improved. And I do appreciate the changes you made there.
Okay.
Can we just have no parking out there?
Afraid not.
Here.
Why not? If it's dangerous.
With respect, pushing it back gets these inebriated people walking further down the road, and loitering on the bridge is just a recipe for disaster.
I like, as a first step, as you said, Commissioner, and Charlie's recommended as the first step. If it doesn't help, we look back at maybe no parking everywhere. But I mean, I think it's a good first step.
It is, that just prompted a memory. I think there is at least one no parking sign at either the Friedrich Crossing
It's Waldemar that has no parking signs. Now, whether they are nice, purchased no parking signs or one you've authorized, I don't know, but they look like official no parking signs at Waldemar.
Well, I'm concerned about the safety of the people out there. The residents that live there, the people who come to visit, and where there's alcohol, there's always a problem.
I just have one last suggestion. If there would be further deterrent if we extended the parking signs. So, for example, if we extended them far enough, if that would be a deterrent that the people would then not want to walk with their coolers, say, so many feet, right? And so all we're doing is deterring them a very small footage. If we then extended the parking signs to the degree where they had to carry their Colemans, et cetera, their floaties, their kids, and everything a certain footage, if that might overall eliminate the problem long term, because it would be too much effort and work to access that crossing. Just a thought.
Well, one thing.
How dangerous would that be?
One thing.
Well, we're already in the process of doing that, right? And so all you're doing is extending it just a little bit longer down the road.
One thing they do at Brinks Crossing is they drive up to the bridge and stop,
right,
unload their stuff, and then go park, 300 feet away, and then come back. So they're gonna use the river, okay? And Brinks Crossing, I think it's been there for years. I don't know how many years those no parking signs have been there, but for a long, long time. So it's working. I don't think we've had any safety issues, or no one's been hit by a car or accidents or anything since it's been going on. But people still willing to walk the distance and carry their coolers.
What's the speed limit in that area at Wagon Wheel? Oh, it's 35. Oh, Brinks.
I couldn't hear you, Lucy.
55. Oh, the speed limit at the Wagon Wheel crossing. 55.
Yep.
We don't have any authority to regulate the speed limit on 1340.
I have a question. How much further are we talking about? Was the suggestion feet 300. Was that, what was it? I'm sorry.
That's fine.
From the bridge.
From the bridge, if you're going north, let's look.
Of
Northeast
both
from the bridge, it would only be on the right-hand side
Okay.
for 300 feet. If you're on the bridge going southwest, it would be 275 feet only on your right-hand
And
side.
that's
if you're going
really
southwest.
honestly not very far.
It's not very far.
It's
but
not very far.
These are the locations that we recommended based on walking it, getting down close, kicking the dirt, making sure. Would you want someone to park on both sides of the road here? No.
Right, and I would really strongly suggest, to Dana's point, that we move it just down a little bit further. Feet aren't very far, 300, 200 feet. It's not very
1,000 feet
far.
or so.
And I would suggest you take another look at moving it down just a tad bit further.
That's a text dot call. I'm
Yes,
afraid.
sir. We're talking about feet here, not yards.
Okay.
I mean, I think I can address that simply by stating the design professionals that were involved in this. We had TxDOT there, we had members of the Sheriff's Office, Kerr County Engineering Department, Kerr County Road and Bridge Department, and the Commissioner. So this was a collaboration of professionals in this field that either have an enforcement duty to this, or a design duty, or a maintenance duty. So the recommendation that has been put forth, that's the best there is. I wouldn't change it at all. I wouldn't make it longer, I wouldn't make it shorter. I'd leave it just the way it is.
If I can speak in support of the county engineer, I was there and they carefully, everybody was there, and they did as careful a study as I think was reasonable. And I think we start with that and we see what happens. I'd want more restrictions if I could, but I've talked to Don, and Don, says, look, people have a right to go to the river, and I understand that. On the other hand, no right is absolute. There are state laws that say how many people can swim in a swimming pool at one time. If you look at what the city council in New Braunfels has done to regulate use of the rivers there, they have gotten very involved. And I'm sure you all have the authority to deal with it, but I also respect the fact that people have the right to use the river. And so we've got to come up with a game plan that ensures safety for everybody. And frankly, I think my neighbors are being very much put upon. We're not adversely affected, I'll say that. But our neighbors are. And I just hope you all can come up with a balance so that, a reasonable number of people can use wagon wheel crossing without creating a safety hazard and interfering with the use and enjoyment of the local land.
Well, let me ask the county attorney, and this may be something we need to get an answer to and come back at a later date. We all understand they have the right to use the river because it's a navigable stream. Okay? I understand that. I think everybody in this room understands that. Do they have the right to park if it's dangerous to get in at that point?
Well, I think that's why it's being addressed in this way.
I know. And so what I'm wondering is if this doesn't solve the problem, I'm in favor of putting no parking down both sides of it, and I don't care if it goes back 1,000 feet, if it's going to prevent people from getting killed. I'm worried about the safety out there. And I can remember it, and me and my stories, I apologize, but years ago when I was a young man, there were 4 of us that bought 2 canoes, and we used to canoe down the Guadalupe River. And we would take 2 vehicles, and we'd take the canoes, we'd put a car for where we're going to get out, and then we'd spend about an hour driving back up where we're going to put in, and we would canoe all day. We did not have the right to step out on anybody's property. We did not have the right to park anywhere along there. We had the right to put in at the river at one point, and 12 miles later get out of the river. And that's the only right that these people have, and they're taking advantage of it. and I'm not in favor of this.
Well, but
I'm in favor of what you're doing. We'll start with this, but I'm not sure this is going to do it. And I'm just speaking my mind that something's got to be done for the safety of the people.
but authority to do something and enforcement of it are two different matters.
I understand.
Yeah.
We might have to deputize West Kerr County.
I get a second?
Yeah, he gets a second.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Harris made a motion and Commissioner Letts seconded it to adopt the plan as at least a first measure to try to bring some safety to Wagon Wheel Crossing. Any other discussion about it? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Step one, we're trying.
Thank y'all for coming here. Thank you.
Okay. Another neutral issue. Let's go to item 1.23. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to issue a certificate of compliance for the Meadowbrook Retirement Community Manufactured Housing Rental Community Development, Phase 1, located at State Highway 27 and Hoot Hollow Road. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. In accordance with Section 1.03.c of the Manufactured Home Rental Community Regulations, the steps for approval, construction, and a certificate of compliance are the following. This is straight out of our manual. 1.03.c, construction of a proposed manufactured home rental community may not begin before the date the county engineer approves the development plan. The county engineer or commissioner's court may require inspection of the infrastructure during its construction and shall require a final inspection. The final inspection must be completed not later than the second business day after the date the county engineer receives an affidavit from the owner of the manufactured home rental community that construction of the infrastructure has been completed in accordance with the approved development plan. If the county engineer determines that the infrastructure complies with the development plan, the commissioner's court shall issue a certificate of compliance not later than the fifth business day after the date the final inspection is completed. An affidavit of completion was received on July 2nd, 2021. It is attached. The county engineer recommends that the court issue a certificate of compliance for the Meadowbrook Retirement Community Manufactured Housing Rental Community Development, Phase 1, located at State Highway 27 and Hoot Owl Hollow, Precinct 4. I did make those inspections, and it is in compliance with our rules.
I'll move for approval. Yeah.
Okay. Well, but technically, we're not supposed to begin discussion until I have a motion in a second, so. We don't always follow that rule, but that is the rule.
Supposed to be the way.
We do have some speakers. We've got Glenna Heaven, and then next will be Melanie Ellsworth and Susan Lufau. Thank you.
Melanie's speaking for my portion.
Okay.
And Glenna gave me her minutes as well, so I think I'm the only speaker.
Covering all three.
Okay.
Okay.
Please identify yourself and your address.
Well, my name's Melanie Ellsworth. I live at 230 Dowling Road West, and that's across the river from the Meadowbrook community.
Right.
And I'll just pass these out real quick.
Whoops.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Melanie, just speak up a little louder.
Okay, talk loud. Okay, I was here almost a year ago, August 3rd, and this is the third time I've been here. The first time they had, we talked about it going in. The second time we decided, we had a big 1.5 inch rain, and I brought a lot of pictures and posters of showing what the damage had done with the current plan, and Charlie, we went on record saying we need a new plan. So the new plan, I don't know what the new plan looked like, but I'm here to be your eyes and ears on the ground and saying from the pictures from the first plan to what it looks like now, it's we're at the same place we were. So I don't have the details on the new plan, but I can tell you what looks like on paper and what's going on out there might be two different things. We had 1.5 inches rain on July 4th, a Sunday. And it's really kind of funny because we had the last time I came, August 3rd,
Ms.
a year
Hastings,
ago.
trust me, there's nothing funny about it.
Okay. Well, coincidental,
I
act of
understand.
God, whatever you want to call it, a few days before the last time I appeared, we had 1.5 inches rain. I was able to get bukus of pictures to show you what was going on. This time I'm appearing before you. A week ago, we had an 1.5 inch rain. What's shocking is the pictures from a year ago, 1.5 inch rain, and the pictures from this week, an 1.5 inch rain, are exactly the same. In other words, I'll walk you through it and explain it. And I'd like, I'd like to get to the bottom of what was supposed to change and why didn't it change, and why are we still at the same place we are. I feel like you should not vote for the certificate of completion or compliance because it's not fixed. And the problem, so I'll just walk you through the first, my packet. The first 2 pages are basically, this was, the plan needs to change. The second one, we're gonna have, in both cases, we have at least 1/2 foot in the ponds, just as a safety factor. So the numbers show that the increase, there is no increase in the flow coming out of either pond, and there is little safety factor in both ponds. So we've got these ponds that are gonna let this water, and there's gonna be no increase. 0 increase in the amount of natural flow. This picture, if you look at it with me, this was the first plan, or the first part. They had some fences up, and we came to you and said, we've got a big flooding problem. They've got these plastic fences that are trying to keep the water off the land. They're not working. This was the second decision to make this pond with this culvert, 24-inch culvert coming out and shooting onto Glenhaven's property. When this happened, then Charlie said we need to come up with a new plan. This is what it still looks like today. We still have a 24-inch culvert from a pond shooting out on Glenhaven's property going down to the creek. And I'm sure you know the difference between a bowl and a funnel. A bowl is a retention pond that you would collect water in, and it would evaporate or get pumped out as sprinklers, or you'll deal with that water. A funnel is a retention pond with a hole in the bottom of it, and that just is absolutely crazy to me. We talked when Charlie said the plans need to change a year ago, I said put in some retention ponds or something. Yes, we're going to change the plans. Well, this is the rainfall that I took this last week. I got it off Noah's site. I got 1.5 inches of rain, and I'm going to show you the pictures that happened. This is what happened the next 6 days. I wasn't out there in the middle of the night taking pictures then. I mean, shockingly, I'm just going to show you 1.5 inches rain, which is nothing in the hill country. We'll go through these pictures. This is me standing on my property looking down to the creek. The water is blue. We've got this brown water coming in full of caliche coming into the creek from Meadowbrook. Okay? And you can say, yeah, that was under construction a year ago. When I showed these exact pictures, you said, that's under construction. You can't complain about that. Well, we're there, right? I mean, roads are in, the houses aren't in. This is how much caliche is washing. I have a little, right about here, I have a little pool area. I sit in there with my grandkids. It's about this high if you sit on your bum, and it's full of sludge, caliche and dirt and stuff. And this is now before we have homes in. Guess what's in that water in a year or two? We've got every pesticide, every, chemical Roundup. We've got all this stuff washing into the creek. And I think it's a real disservice to not only, me, but everybody else downriver from me. This is the culvert at the bottom of the funnel that was supposed to be a retention pond, but it's got this 24, a year ago, you guys said, is that right on the fence? Charlie said, no, it's supposed to be 15 feet away. They've moved it, it was right on the fence, they've moved it 4 feet back, if that. Glenna?
It's less than 4 feet.
Less than 4 feet back. If your neighbor put a funnel on their property, so to speak, and put in a culvert pushing onto your property from their pond, it doesn't make any sense. Now, I know Judge Kelly has fought this privately with water coming on your property, And you might tell me that it's Glenna's fault, she's gotta go and sue the developer, because it's a private matter. Before it happened to you, did a county commissioner group, the rule of law in Kerr County, did they vote to approve it? Or did it just happen?
It just happened.
Okay, it just happened. So you're the rule of law in Kerr County. You're honest, you have integrity, you fight for the people, you pray for the people, you're good men, and I appreciate what you do. I know it's a hard job. I wouldn't want it, and I admire you. I'm just saying, now's your chance to do the right thing and say, you know what, this didn't get fixed. I'm not here to stop the Meadowbrook from going in. I'm here to say it's not fair to put a culvert on someone's property, is your property getting eroded? Severely. She has a road there that's severely eroded because of this. So we'll just keep going through. This is an inch and a half rain. This is minor. This is the part that I believe is supposed to be over the septic tanks. This is inch and a half of rain sitting over a septic field. It's scary to me. I don't want to sit in the river after a rain with that goes in and what, this is the retention pond that a retention pond holds water and then you pump it out or it evaporates. I've grown up with retention ponds in Texas my whole life. And the retention ponds holds all the rainwater, it evaporates over time, or you have a system to pump it out and irrigate. I don't care what you do with the water, but you don't put a culvert in the bottom of a retention pond and dump it on your neighbor. Sorry for this is Glenna Haven's property, it's a lake because of two spots. And what the natural flow of water, the rain comes down on a piece of property, that's the natural flow of water. I'm just gonna read, and I know Judge Kelly, you're very aware of it. Because we've talked. This is facts on retention ponds. this is what a retention pond is. I'm going to save this one for later. Let me read the Texas, and this is the law. Section 11.086 of the Texas Water Code provides that no person may divert or impound the natural flow of surface waters in this state, or permit a diversion or impounding by him to continue in a manner that damages the property of another by the overflow of the water diverted or impounded. You're very aware of that. I know you've had a personal issue with this. That's the law. You guys are the governing law. This is off the website of Kerr County. I just copied and pasted what your job is as a county. You're the managing governing body of Kerr County. You're the rule of law, and you're here to keep the law. And you know full well that this is a law that's on the books, and if you pass this and permit them to purposely dump water on someone else's property and break this law, you're held liable for doing it. I just want to go on the books that you're saying, you might be thinking, well, she's got a lawsuit on her hands. Well, if you vote to approve it, you're right there in on it, because I found this document. Actually, my mom found it. I said, help me, I need some research. This is the constitutional basis of county government. It was I only printed the first 2 pages, but I'll tell you the second paragraph I highlighted. Federal courts have held that counties have quasi-independent policy-making authority. Therefore, counties may be sued if their policies violate federal civil rights laws. You may be sued as a county if you break the law, knowingly break the law to approve something that is breaking the law. That's my last point. This is Mr. Mundahl a year ago. So this happened a year ago. I took all these pictures. We called TECQ and said we've had all this caliche washing the river. What do we do? Filed a report. Come to find out, Mr. Mundahl, the developer, had not filed a permit with TCEQ to discharge into the river because he's got a construction site. Well, what he did is he said, oh, sorry, let me file the permit. Filed the permit, put it up. I called TECQ and said, well, what recourse do you have? Can anybody just go and, oops, sorry, I dumped a bunch of stuff in the creek, I forgot to file a permit. So there was really no recourse, but TECQ reached out to Mundall and said, I'll read it in the report. Mr. Mundall was advised to contact downstream landowners for the purpose of removing sediment accumulations caused by the unauthorized discharge. He was cited, had this unauthorized discharge. In his August 12th, 13th, 2020 email responses, Mr. Mundall stated that he had mailed the downstream landowner a certified letter. I am representing Johnson Creek Collective. There's many of us. We've donated a lot of money to try to keep the creek beautiful. We have put a lot of effort. Not one of us got a certified letter. So I'd like to, I know you guys don't have anything to do with Mr. Mundall, but I'm putting that before the court to go on record to say this is who we're working with. We want to do things on the up and up. We want to be transparent. We want to do the right thing to do is the right thing to do. So I am asking you to not unanimously vote and approve this compliance grant that they have completed everything that they're supposed to do, because they haven't. It's still a problem. I wasn't privy on the new plan. Last thing, I'm going to give you an invitation. I didn't put on there, but I will provide food and drinks if you want to show up. I'm inviting you to come out to my place.
You've been talking about inebriated people in the
No,
river.
I don't actually
Is there
drink alcohol,
parking?
so it would all be on non-alcoholic drinks. But
Mr. Moser wants to know, is there parking?
there is lots of parking. I have an acre of parking at my place. So lots of parking. Come out and see it for yourself. Do not vote to comply. And I'm a little nervous with Charlie reading what he read, because it said he has 2 days to approve this, and if it's the law that he has to approve it without any of your vote, then I'm here for no reason. I think you have the power to say, hey, let's get it right. Let's not put a funnel on someone's property and dump, that's just, I hope, did I say everything you need me to say, Glenna?
Am I allowed to speak?
Sure.
I only have one second. With all due respect to Mr. Hastings and your department, to the development plan, to what it looks like on paper. On paper, it looks like they've met the requirements. The reality does not match what was supposed to happen. And I think this is the big conflict. What is happening does not match the output that was projected, the means by which it was to disperse, the changes that were to occur have not occurred. And I know that in reviewing some of the minutes from our previous hearings and so forth, that there have been so many errors made in the reports. For example, we were talking about that culvert. In the minutes, it was reported to you that it was 15 feet away from the fence, and it's less than 4. I don't know if an independent outside engineering audit could, and I'm not saying that on paper that the development plan is correct and meets the requirements. What I'm saying is the actuality of what was supposed to happen is not.
So really what you're saying is somebody falsified documents?
I'm saying that it was not accurate.
And I've got an email here this morning from one of your neighbors that asked me to read this, and I think this kind of goes to what you're saying. And it's from Glenn Gilly. It's, good morning, Commissioners. At the November 9th, 2020 Commissioners meeting, Commissioner Moser asked the project engineer, John Hewitt, what's the distance between the outlet and the fence? John Hewitt responded, 15 feet. I'd have to go check and see. A few minutes later, Commissioner Ballou asked, are you saying in this picture, John, there's 15 feet between the fence and from the back here to the culvert? John Hewitt shakes his head, yes, and Commissioner Ballou says, doesn't look like it. Obviously, he never went to check and see because the outlet is 4 feet from the fence. How many other measurements have not been checked? Are all the project measurements off by a factor of 3 to 4 feet? Or 3 to 4 times, like the culvert measurement? How can the measurement be trusted in this project? For its own well-being, the Commissioners Court needs to table this agenda item until an outside engineer can audit the project entirely. Now that's from Glenn Gilly, a neighbor out there. Let me say something about this. And you know, this is one of the frustrating things for me. I don't like it. I think most of us have been on hunting leases, had land where we hunt or something, and you drive along and somebody puts a deer blind right on the fence line, overlooking part of your country. Well, to me, that's what that culvert looks like, 3 or 4 feet from somebody's fence. It's like, and I've been out there with Charlie 2 or 3 times, and each time, Charlie, you probably heard me say, that's like they're looking down a shotgun barrel with that right next to their fence. To me, it's the same type thing. That's not a very good impression, first impression of your new neighbor. He puts that deer blind right on your fence line, overlooking your place, or this.
It doesn't matter what it looks like, it matters what it's
Yes.
doing.
Oh, I
So
understand.
your blind
I know.
doesn't put out water
Right.
on your property, but that's I think Linda's over what it looks like, we're all over what it looks like. We're just saying the results, yeah, we got, I mean, you don't put, on paper, it's saying this is a safety issue, we're retaining all this water, and it's really just a safety issue, but you get an inch of rain, and it's funneling it off all that land and shooting it out of pipe. It doesn't, we don't care what the pipe looks like, we care what's coming out of the pipe.
Let me ask Charlie a clarifying question. The last time we met on this subject, there had to be redesign by the engineer, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the redesign was implemented. That's as I understand. But the fact is, based on the photographs you present today, 1.5 inch rainfall, the redesign didn't fix the job. Now then, my question is relative to the state law as presented here. Did it correct the problem in accordance with the state law? Well, if it didn't, so the redesign didn't work.
Right.
Trying to get out of the gun and the barrel and the funnel and all that kind of stuff. The fact is, it had to be redesigned. It was redesigned, but the redesign didn't work
Exactly.
in accordance with state law.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I'm not sure what the question is.
The question is, however long ago we met, okay, redesign had to happen. John Hewitt was going to redesign the project.
And he did.
And he did. Okay. The fact is, it rained 1.5 inches the other day, and the water came from onto private property. Is that in compliance with the state law?
The water coming onto their property, it's flow rates that that the engineer
The law doesn't
has
say
worked
anything about flow rate.
It does.
It doesn't say rate. I read
says
it.
rate of flow.
There is, not right there, but there are rules.
No. I want to read the state law. I don't want to read
I
something
think
else
what
unless
we-
somebody presents it.
I
It
think
doesn't
we
say
need to
anything about.
have-
It doesn't say anything about flow rate. This thing I'm reading right here never says flow rate in here at all.
Okay.
I understand flow rate. I are an engineer, and it can be very devastating. Okay, flow rate, but it doesn't say anything about flow rate. Diversion or impounding, blah blah, in a manner that damages. Now that could be interpreted as flow rate if it damages somebody else's property downstream. Yeah, if you come up with a real high velocity, that could be damaging. So maybe it's not in compliance with the law in what's being done. I mean, it's damaging, right?
It is damaging, 1.5 inches is damaging.
What I'm saying, it's damaging property downstream because the alleged funnel and the flow rate coming through there it's like a high velocity jet. You can take a water hose and
It's not
damage
even-
something.
It's not even high velocity. That's the thing. It's trickling this much,
Yeah,
and
I know, but it was the flow rate.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. And you're talking about the funnel and the high velocity
yeah.
coming down being
Yeah.
damaging. Okay. So it sounded like the design didn't fix it.
Right,
Bottom line, it sounded like the design didn't fix it,
exactly.
to me.
Well, this sounds like a question of jurisdiction. That's what comes up in my mind, is does a violation of state law supersede what we have our part in it or not?
Well, you're supposed to keep the law.
We don't enforce every law in the state of Texas, so.
You can
what
break
I'm-
them, but you can't vote to break it though.
Well, we issue a certificate of compliance according to that's the request. Issue a certificate of compliance is the agenda item, right?
And my point is, if somebody violates something after the fact or during or wherever, what is our responsibility and can we enforce it? Can we issue a cease and desist? Does the sheriff come out? So it's a question of jurisdiction. Who says what about it? How does it get stopped?
It's approving a certificate of compliance. That's the only
Right.
thing on the table.
If you
Which
didn't
we
know
did.
about it, if I didn't show up today and say, hey, there's a problem, I can see that maybe you wouldn't be liable. Maybe you wouldn't be sued as a county.
We're not liable.
I'm going on the
You
record
misread
saying,
that.
you know about this. You know about this, and, I mean, even if you're not liable, honesty and integrity plays a part.
Let's cut to the chase on this. Okay? There's a bad situation out there. We all know that. Charlie, if you would come back to the podium and let's just have a conversation, you and me. In order to get the plan approved to put in that subdivision out there, the engineers, we're going to have to come up with a hydrological study. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that hydrological study has to meet state law, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that means that you can't divert or impound water on your neighbor, right? That's what the water code says. She read it correctly. That's what it says. It's either the diversion or impoundment of water. And
correct.
You have to slow the flow, so that involves sometimes impoundment.
Just a second. Let me walk through it, Harlan. I'll get there.
Okay.
One of the components in preparing a hydrological study is the volume of water that you would normally have received without these improvements, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you establish that volume of water, and that becomes the total amount of water that the developer can discharge onto neighbors, because that's all they did before, that's all they can do now, right?
Yes, sir.
The second component is velocity. When you put down an impervious cover, it speeds water up, right?
Correct.
And fast water tends to do more damage than slow water.
Yes, sir.
And so you have to address both the volume and the velocity to your neighbor.
Yes, sir.
Now that velocity, if you accelerate it by the impervious cover and by channeling it into limited discharge points off the property, which is what has happened here, right?
Yes.
Okay. That can cause the velocity to substantially increase. And so, if I understand the law correctly, it's not the neighbor's responsibility to slow that water down. It's the developing party's responsibility to slow that water down. Am I right, Ms. County Attorney?
I think that you're right, yes.
So, and where we're coming from is, when y'all came in here last time, I wanted to know, does the hydrological study meet state law? Has the engineer come up with a plan to deal with this water? And you met with him, is that correct?
I have.
Are you satisfied that his plan that he came up with meets state law?
I believe it meets state law.
Okay, with regard to the plan that he gave you, did he install the plan according to what it was supposed to be?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're looking at photographs that show consequences here that I wouldn't expect to see if we had a state compliant plan with regard to volume and velocity. Can we explain why that's the case?
I cannot.
So all you're telling us is that the construction is in compliance with the plans were in compliance with the state law, and that's an engineering determination.
Yes, sir.
That's what we're stuck with. As a court, we now have a private engineer telling us, we have our county engineer telling us, they're telling us it's in compliance. I'm looking at these photographs and I'm not sure I believe it.
Right. So what do you do?
Well,
I look at data. The photographs are data. The engineering is calculations.
Right,
Okay?
it's on paper.
So, in God we trust, everybody else bring data.
Yeah, so can you put a stop on it till we get it fixed? I mean, can you say, hey, let's revisit it? Yeah, it looks right on paper, but the last time I was here, somebody in here said, listen, we appreciate it. You guys are our eyes and ears on the ground. You're busy, you have a lot of meetings, you're not running for re-election, I mean, you guys have a lot to do, and I don't expect you to come out to dinner at my place. It's a lot to do. I'm telling you, I'm there. I've taken the pictures one time. This happens a lot. Trust your constituents, and, you know, when the taxpayer calls, you talk to the taxpayer. I'm the taxpayer. Listen to me. This is what it really looks like. And I appreciate you saying there is an issue because these pictures show. Now what are you gonna do with it? It's on you to say, okay, it all looks good on paper, and we could legally maybe stamp approval and say, hey, our hands are tied, it's on paper.
Let me stop there. Let me stop right there, because Charlie's got his hand up, and I know the commissioner to my left, who wrote the subdivision rules, is about to stop this. If they have a compliant plan, if the development plan complies with state law and our subdivision rules, I think you're going to tell me we don't have any choice but to accept it.
Well, I mean, that's sort of. I have a question on one of the things, you know, I'm looking at the pictures, and I don't recall exactly what's in the subdivision plans on this point, but I don't see any revegetation. And revegetation would at least help this problem. Is there any requirement for revegetation in our subdivision? I know along roads we require it.
Along the roads. And there's a great deal of pads that they've built out there that's where home sites are going to go. Those don't have vegetation on them, yeah, but they're contributing right now. And when a rooftop gets put in there, that will contribute the same.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe not wash caliche.
But I mean, it seems to me that I guess it's not, you know, a number fact, but it is a data point that having vegetation there would have helped solve this problem. And why can't that be part of the engineering study? I mean, we require it along roads for the exact same reason that the issue seems to be as bad as it is right here by the pictures. And I haven't been out there all. Well, actually, I went out there a year ago, drove by, and I couldn't see much from the road. But is there any requirement for revegetate areas of construction to help minimize the siltation
within the right of way? Yes, sir.
But I'm talking about on private to keep the
in a
drainage plan.
Well, they calculated the size of those ponds, taking into account that there will be a home there on those pad sites that right now don't have vegetation on them. They will have a home on it, and the home's going to have rooftops, and the rooftops are impervious cover, more so than the pad that right now is caliche or base or whatever it is they used for their pad sites. But there's a lot of grass out there that wasn't there a year ago, and it's because we've had such a wet year. What I would recommend to the court at this point, when I wrote this agenda bill, you have to realize that was almost 2 weeks ago. I didn't know this information was going to come forth today. I was not aware. We have been able to go out there after storms and try to see what happened, where'd the drainage go, what's going on. But with the information we have today, I believe that it would be our duty to go back to the developer and his engineer with this information and say, hey, I know you're close, I know you feel like you're close, I know your plans show that you followed the plans. They're still having an issue. Can you look at it one last time, please?
Thank you, Charlie.
I think that would be the thing to do moving today forward.
Charlie, I think that the engineer needs to look at what it was before the retention pond and the culvert, okay, the drain pipe,
Yes, sir.
and compare the two, okay? What it was before was not sufficient. And what it is today, based on the data, it's not sufficient. So what's the corrective
The
action?
biggest challenge that the engineer has had on this, if you look at the data and if you talk to the people that have lived out there
And the folks that have used that property as a hayfield for years, it was a hayfield, and it's not anymore. And in order for it to not be a hayfield, the topography had to change to accommodate roads. And
Right.
because of the roads, you had to have drainage. And there's significantly more impervious cover than there's ever been.
But here, that's detail. What I'm saying is, a neighbor on the other side of the fence, they don't care if it's a hayfield or development. All they want to do is to not have their property adversely affected. Simple. I don't care about roads and rooftops and all that kind of stuff. It's just you can't, according to the law, you cannot in any manner damage the property of those downstream. And it's doing it. And so it's different, you know, so what's the engineering fix to this? It apparently didn't work.
I think we have the ability right now, because we're right on the cusp and they've brought this information, they're saying we're still being damaged.
Right.
I think we get to go back to the developer. I think it's reasonable for us to say,
Okay, good deal.
your neighbor's still being damaged, and the intent of the law is that there wouldn't be.
Correct.
There's
Ms. Haven?
rules about mitigation.
May I ask this a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you said that the development plan was in compliance with state law,
Yes.
are we sure approximately 3,200 feet of fence line? And when it was a hayfield, 3,200 feet of fence line had slight seepage that came over. And I never saw any water as a result on my property. To go from that situation to what you're seeing in front of you today, and I understand they had to change the topography and the flow of the water, but to target it to these two, to drain everything. One is the retention pond of the culvert, and the other is also shown there where it drained everything to a low point on my property and created these two rivers now. So now what used to drain over 3,200 feet, linear feet of fence line, now comes through these 2 points.
Okay.
It's not, I'm not saying the volume's any greater, I'm saying the way it's been diverted has caused the velocity to create a dramatic impact and change. And that's why I don't understand how you can, how their development plan meets
Bad engineering
and
design.
complies
It is.
with this Texas water
Bottom
code.
line.
It is.
That's my question.
And Ms. Haven, to follow up on that, and I'm talking to my county engineer, who's doing his dead level best to try to get this right, trust me. And you have to rely on what the other experts are giving you. And there's a lot of technical information here. But if we talk about the difference between volume and velocity, if you just view that property out there that the developer has as a round bowl, in an average rainstorm, it's going to collect so much rain, and you can quantify that. Civil engineers do this. My father was a civil engineer. He could do that. I just know that they do it. And that determines the volume. And it seems like to me that this plan probably addresses the volume. And I'm taking, from your review of it, you're comfortable that it addresses the volume, that they're not increasing the volume going onto your property. But what used to come across over 3,200 square feet in a sheet, a slow flowing sheet of water, has now been channeled through the retention ponds and the drainage pipe into these concentrated areas where the velocity of that water is substantially increased. That's pretty clear. Normally I would, and again, not being a civil engineer, I would have expected there to be some sort of diffusion obstacles out there to stop that water, slow it down, and spread it back out. It goes over a wide area so that the water once again goes back to a nice, gentle, sheeting flow. And 4 feet from somebody's property line with a shotgun barrel pointed at you is almost certain suicide in anybody's book. And we need to sit down and talk with the engineer and figure out what's the problem and how to fix it.
That brings us to the 4-foot thing. Do you see this picture, Charlie? And I know you've been out there, but you saw this picture?
Yes.
So what my question is, from the fence line to where the rock starts, is that where we're measuring this, or above where the rocks are? How do they measure that according to the engineer?
I'm not sure how you are. You just going to the edge of the
No,
pipe?
I'm asking you, how should it be measured? To the rocks or beyond that, from the fence line? Do you know?
Bottom line, it doesn't matter.
It does.
That's a
matter.
difficult question to answer, because if you're,
That's it. That's
Still
it.
has to
That's
work.
what I said, It's still
we're
got
talking
to
up
spread
here.
out.
Yeah.
If
Well,
this part.
It doesn't matter
I
how far
understand-
that distance is.
Wait, hold on a minute. I understand that I don't want to become the end of the funnel and have everybody's sewage come onto my property. That part I get. But if you have simple things like this that we were told was fixed and was not, if the measurement from the fence to here is wrong versus if you're measuring from here up to the top of the grade, that's a different matter altogether. What I'm getting at is, were we told the truth or not? And how do you measure that? Is it measured from the fence back 4 feet to the rock, or is it beyond?
I
So
wasn't
if we don't even
involved
know
in-
that, how do we know the rest of it is true?
And I wasn't involved in the discussion about the 15 feet and the 4 feet. I will reiterate what the judge has said. I think it's irrelevant. I think the issue is.
I don't think it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
What's coming
I
under
believe
it is important.
I
That's
believe it's
true.
irrelevant because they're getting damaged. If there was no damage, it wouldn't matter how close or far away it is.
If they put boulders, if they put those cut
Yeah.
limestone blocks out
Yes,
there
sir.
to slow that water down and to spread it back out, and by the time it hits her fence line, it's back the way it was, there wouldn't be any damage.
Right.
But there's damage.
A boulder's not, you're taking a bowl of water and sticking it through a funnel. I mean, my thought, I mean, could be wrong, plug the hole, plug the 24-inch hole, put some pumps on there and pump the water out onto your land or spread it around differently.
May I make a suggestion? Let's not engineer it here. It's got to be re-engineered.
But I mean,
Yeah.
a funnel's a funnel.
Yeah,
I don't
whether
care
it's
if
4 feet or 14 feet or 15
Bob-
feet
It's
or
a
a
funnel.
pump, it's got to be re-engineered.
Well, that's
Bottom
part
line.
of what the rules are. How far is it supposed to be?
That's not a rule.
That's not a rule.
That's not a rule.
That's a plan.
It's-
You're right, and we were told one thing, and it's been stated several times that we were told, and these homeowners were told, one thing and something else happened.
I agree with that.
If that happened in the courtroom here, I'd like to know that.
Sure.
I'd like to know
I
if
would
somebody
too.
stood here and lied to me about something.
But where Charlie and I are coming from, and I think he and I are on the same page, you measure the volume of water. You get no more volume of water than you got before as you did after.
Right.
You measure the velocity that the water hits you and whether or not it causes damage. If the velocity increases and it doesn't cause you damage, then you don't have anything to complain about. But if it causes damage, that's the issue.
Yes.
And here, if it causes damage, then you have to diffuse it. And a lot of times they go and you'll see concrete aprons, and they'll have blocks built into the concrete to slow that water and spread it back down so that it hits it at a much wider point of contact.
Yeah.
And so, whichever way, John Hewitt's a good engineer, and Mundall seems to have wanted to work with us in good faith
Right.
at this point. I want to go back and have them come back and be able to come to this courtroom and explain to us how this meets state law with regard to volume and velocity.
Right.
Perfect. That's the only reason we came.
You did a good job.
And
Thank
that con orchard, I mean, you can see it's taking its toll.
Oh, it's gonna be.
And, you know, that's not
yeah.
natural, that,
Well,
it's not,
they'll
you're
take
gonna
that
have.
out eventually, but I mean, just her road alone, it's got,
Okay.
she can't drive, I mean, it's gonna get to where she can't drive on the
Right.
road on her property.
I had to repair my road twice. And have it graded.
Put the blocks in there. Kill the blocks.
Is there any action to be taken on this item? Have we cussed it enough today?
Appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Okay, so we'll pass on this and revisit that at a later date. Make sure that you're notified.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break and see where we're going from here. Okay, let's come back to order. I'm missing Commissioner Harris. I see him out there.
The lady said a great job.
Okay, we're still in our 10 o'clock items. 1.24, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to waive plating oversight and approval to the city of Kerrville for a revision of plat for Kerrville Hills Ranch Estates Number 1, Lot 27. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. Kind of going through the process on this of bringing it to you, I am going to recommend that you deny waiving plating oversight. Let me give you some background. This proposal divides Lot 27, it's a little over 5 acres, by the existing plat into 2 lots, Lot 27A and 27B. They each should be 2.55 acres with frontage on Loma Vuelta. Lot 27 is adjacent to the city of Kerrville. Since it's in the Kerrville's ETJ, it would be typically platted through both the city of Kerrville and Kerr County simultaneously. This request is for the court to waive plating oversight and approval to the city of Kerrville. Although plating oversight would be waived, signature blocks for both Kerr County Floodplain Administrator and OSSF designated representative would be required. However, we noticed something this morning. I apologize, I didn't notice this before it went on the agenda. It still would, I still would ask for you to not waive the plating oversight. There's a right-of-way that needs to be acquired, and since it's going to be dedicated to the county, it needs to come back to the county. We did one of these just a couple weeks ago. Same thing, we didn't waive our plating oversight. So with that being said, I recommend that the court either take no action or deny this waiver request.
So just take no action. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Charlie, a question on these, back on this one. I agree with that recommendation, but if they have to still plat it through the county, I think are we going to charge them fees like we normally do for a subdivision to go through, from environmental health and the number of lots and all that? But, and if we are, I think that's wrong. So I would,
So how so? Will you elaborate on that?
Well, I don't think we should, because in the situation that it's going to go through both entities, the developer's going to have to pay fees to both the city and the county. And it's a city and the county trying to work out rules issue, not the developer's fault. And I doubt the city will waive their fees, but we can waive our fees. And I would like to have that come back so that we can waive the fees to the developers. So they at least not out that little bit of that cost.
Right.
But I would bring that back. We can't do it on this agenda item, but I think that's a, and I didn't think about what we did like a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Good.
Okay, then we'll pass on that and go to item 1.25, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on August the 23rd, 2021 for a revision of plat for Cypress Springs Estate Phase 2, Section 1, lots 57 and 58. Charlie Hastings.
This proposal combines Lot 50, 1 acre, and Lot 58, 1.44 acres into Lot 57A, 2.44 acres. Access to the proposed lot will be from Morning Mist Point. The county engineer requests the court set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on August 23rd, 2021 for a revision of plat for Cypress Springs Estates, Phase 2, Section 1, Lots 57 and 58, Volume 7, pages 172 through 173, Precinct 4.
I move for approval. Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Moser, to set a public hearing for August 23rd at 10 a.m. for Cypress Springs Estate, Phase 2, Section 1, Lots 57 and 58. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.26, public hearing regarding the placement of signs reading Kerr County property, authorized personnel only for portions of Shepherd Reese Road, Precinct 1. I will convene the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf?
It's empty.
No one's out there?
No, sir.
So we will adjourn the public hearing and move on to item 1.27. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the Commissioners Court approval of the interlocal agreement with the Divide School for the parking lot seal coat at the Divide School located at 121 Divide School Road, Northwest, Mountain Home, Texas. Kelly Hoffa.
We came to the Commissioners Court for approval for the Road and Bridge Department to seal coat the parking lot at the Divide School, and the Commissioners Court approved this project on June 28, 2021. I had forgotten that we needed to do an interlocal agreement with the Divide School. Our county attorney was very quick to turn this agreement for the Divide School Board's approval. So before you is the signed agreement with the Divide School. At this time, I ask the Commissioners Court for their approval of the interlocal agreement with the Divide School and for the county judge to sign the same, this being in Precinct 4.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Ballew to approve the interlocal agreement with the Divide School for the parking lot seal coat project. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Moving on to item 1.28, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the Commissioners Court approval to remove and install a larger cattle guard at the Divide School in Mountain Home Precinct 4. Kelly Hoffa.
Bill Bacon from the Divide School contacted Commissioner Harris regarding replacement of their existing cattle guard with a larger cattle guard on the county-maintained road called Divide School Road Northwest in Precinct 4. This cattle guard is within our area of maintenance. I think I even included some court minutes when we did maintenance on the cattle guard at Divide School on March 13th, 2006 Commissioner Court meeting. The Divide School will pay for the fabrication of the new cattle guard along with the delivery to the location. Kerr County will remove the existing cattle guard and install the new cattle guard within the county-maintained portion of the road. At this time, we ask the Commissioners Court for their approval to allow the Road and Bridge Department to remove the existing cattle guard and install the new replacement cattle guard. The Divide School will donate the new cattle guard to Kerr County, and Kerr County will continue maintenance on the new cattle guard. This is in Precinct 4.
Now, the next agenda item is 1.29, and that's to accept the donation of that cattle guard.
Yes,
is that
sir.
right? So can we consider both of these at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I move for approval.
Second.
And accepting the donation?
Yes.
Approval and accepting the donation?
Yes, sir.
You're good with that? We have a motion to approve the installation of a larger cattle guard and a motion to approve accepting the donation for that cattle guard at the Divide School. Any other discussion?
I have a quick
What happens to
question.
the old one?
Well, that's what I was fixing to ask. And I'm pretty sure I know, but I just want you to state it. The old cattle guard we're taking out, that comes back to the county.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's a question I had is that on these cattle guards, this is really the county attorney. Once we have a lot of cattle guards around the county still, most of them near precinct. Once they're in the county right away, we own it, correct?
Yes, sir, there's.
So I mean, that it's someone like if
I'm glad you're having this
We had a
discussion.
very recent conversation about it.
Yeah.
Kelly and I.
And I would, my position would be, but I'm not the attorney, so that we would own them, anything that was put in the county right away. But is that accurate?
They become ours when it's placed in the county right of way, and then when we have to remove them, Road and Bridge takes them and scraps them, or otherwise does whatever's
And we
most
cannot,
appropriate for
and we
them.
cannot give them to the adjoining landowners, correct?
We should not give them to the adjoining landowner.
I don't think we cannot, it's probably more accurate if it's a DF.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
one's a little unique, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly. Basically, here's the Divide School, this is their property line, and that cattle guard goes right here. We maintain up to it.
Yes.
So it's not a drive-through all the way. So that's right there on the border.
And I believe they're going to be putting up a new fence, and I think that's
Exactly.
what prompted that this would be the time to make it a little bit wider than what the existing is.
And part of the conversation that Kelly and I had going into this and doing it this way and accepting the donation was that this makes it real clear that there's a court order, that they donated it to the county, it's in our right of way. Because the question has come up,
Who owns
just like you asked, about who owns them, once their time is.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion about approving the installation of a larger cattle guard and accepting the donation of the cattle guard? Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone out there looking at an agenda. We have gotten through this part of it. We have to go back and pick up the things that we did not cover because of the timed items. So let's go to the last untimed item, which is the 945 1.11, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding establishing a Kerr County Advisory Committee for aggregate production operations. Commissioner Moser.
Judge, I think everybody has a copy of a draft of the bylaws for establishing the advisory council. And so what I recommend is everybody take a look at this, and let's bring this back up in 2 weeks from now. So everybody's had a chance to look at it.
Good. Okay, we'll pass it.
Yep.
Very good.
Didn't we skip something here?
Oh, we're going to come back and get them.
Okay.
I'm trying to finish up all my timed items.
Okay.
That was it.
All right.
So now if we go back to the earliest things that we left off, go back to the county clerk, be 1.9, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve and adopt the county clerk's annual record archival plan as presented by Ms. Dowdy.
I gave y'all a packet earlier this morning. It's the proposal, and it does change a line item that I presented in my budget. It's for a dedicated fund for the records archival. So the projection for this new archival plan will include marriage records, a probate, an old probate book, register of bonds, applicants for land records, liquor dealer's docket, drummer's record, and alien ownership. So the plan is to have all these books, a number of books preserved. They're all handwritten, so it's not just typed documents we're preserving. This is all handwritten stuff. The projection, the proposal, what's the word I'm looking for? Cost estimate they sent me this morning is $31,196.60, so I'll need to get with the auditor to change a line item. And if the court does accept this proposal, that line item is 41-634-411. I just request that the Commissioners Court approves this.
So is this
plan.
something new, something repeated, something
It's
renewed?
repeated annually, and it has to be, we had the public hearing earlier. It had to be a published public hearing, which I did.
So is this continuation from previous year?
Yes,
It's in the budget?
it's a dedicated fund, yes, there's
It's a
plenty of money in
dedicated
there.
fund, Okay.
Do we get more than one bid for this type of stuff, or what's the process?
So before the bid we had, so there's, it's called the Texas Board something, where these companies that do these kinds of archival projects, they're kind of like pre-bid. It's a pre-bid thing, and so this company that we were going to go with, the Scott Merriman, they're on this list, so it's not a bid process that you would normally go through. So they're on that list, so they're exempt. So
Is this a court action, or is this
This is
something
court
that the
action.
county clerk can approve?
the county clerk has to do it in conjunction with the Commissioners Court. So this is a dedicated fund spending money
I
of
see.
the
Okay.
county, so I need
Okay.
y'all's approval.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My only question is, what's a drummer's record?
So
I heard that too.
So the, back in the day, when someone, like a salesman would come into town, they'd drum up business, so I guess they had to get permission to do that. That's what I understand. I think that's what you need.
Archaic term, but I remember that.
Yeah, I'll learn something there.
So what were the three again? The drummer and the...
Oh, let me go through them again.
The bugler.
A number
and
of
the
marriage records, a number of probate records, register of bonds, liquor dealer's docket, drummer's record, and alien ownership.
Alien to what?
I think alien land, like, I'm not really sure. I'm sorry.
I mean, we hadn't
It's
even
a
gotten
very
to Mars now, and
small-
they're coming here and doing something?
I think it's an old handwritten record, and I'd like to get it. It's neat. It's just.
I move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Letts, to approve and adopt the county clerk's annual record archival plan as presented. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.10, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve and adopt the county clerk's fee schedule for fiscal year 2021-2022 to be effective October 1 of 2021 through September 30 of 2022. Ms. Dowdy.
I'm not recommending any fee changes. The letter I wrote to y'all kind of has a list of, or does have a list of the fees that y'all can set. I don't recommend any changes. And some of them are tied into the subdivision rules, so if that ever changes, you know, we'll all collaborate on that. Just a note that come January 1st, 2022, the probate, guardianship, mental health fee schedule will change, statutory change, and I've already incorporated that into our fee schedule to be presented today. So I just request, unless y'all have any recommendations to change any fees.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the county clerk's fee schedule for fiscal year 2021-2022 to be effective October 1 through September 30. October 1, 21 and September 30th, 22. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Sheriff, I'm going to take you literally at your word and move on to Ms. Doss, because there's going to be a little bit of discussion on this. So let's go down to 1.17. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the renewal of the county liability insurance through the TAC Risk Management Pools Liability Program.
Yes, good morning. Up for your approval is the annual renewal for the county liability insurance through the TAC Risk Management Pools Liability Program. This is an annual, please sign.
I'll look through it. Looks pretty standard. Renewal. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Balloon, to approve the county liability insurance through TAC Risk Management Pools Liability Program. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.18, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to clarify a payroll market adjustment plan policy. Ms. Doss.
On this one, Judge, I think we're going to defer until our next meeting. You and I visited a little bit about this, and I just think we need to make sure that we get the actual policy written correctly. And I'm not sure we're quite there yet. We probably acted a little premature last time. And rather than clarifying it twice, I think it's better to clarify it one time, and we'll bring that back at our next meeting.
And I agree with that. Commissioner Letts and I talked about this last Friday, and there's been more uncertainty and even upheaval in the employee ranks than we anticipated. We thought this was going to be a little bit more clear-cut than it apparently has been. We're going to defer this to a workshop this Wednesday to try to explain everything and get everything cleared up and get everybody on the same page. I don't think it's going to change anything too substantively, but and then we will take it up at the next Commissioners Court meeting.
And just a general comment. Part of it's changing wording around and things like that, but I just want to let the employees know that we are, the plan is, what the court has decided so far, and whether we're just trying to get the verbiage correct, is that improving the benefits, and both in the vacation or paid time off area, longevity, market adjustment plan. Employees are getting better and more benefits than they've ever had in the past. Under what we've discussed so far, I'm sure we're just trying to make sure we get the language exactly correct, because we've learned over time that it can cause problems if our wording isn't exactly correct.
And this is no reflection on Ms. Doss. It came up when I overheard a question being asked out of the front of the desk where our office, and I didn't know the answer to the question. And I just decided that until the county judge knows the answers to the question, maybe we need to keep talking about it, because I have to be able to answer those questions. So we talked about it on Friday. I feel very good about this, and looking forward to the workshop to try to get everything explained. But I think we're in good shape. So we'll pass that. We can do that on the next one too. The PTO.
Yes, pass on that.
We'll pass on item 1.19 and then 1.20.
1.20 still is also an executive session item. I believe it's listed almost twice. That one I think we will.
Are we going to pass it, or are we going to do it today?
In executive session, yes.
Today?
Yes.
Later today?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll check it off. Okay, now, Sheriff, I think you got the last agenda items until we get to the approval agenda.
We'll make them quick.
1.12, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve a $2,000 donation from Carlisle Flooring Center for the Sheriff's Special Response Team Fund.
Yes, sir. I'm just looking for y'all's approval to accept these donations, the following three.
Okay, let's go ahead and take the next one too. Item 1.13, consider and discuss, take appropriate action to approve a $5,000 donation from a citizen for the Sheriff's Special Response Team Fund. And then we'll go on to 1.14, which is again, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve another $5,000 donation. But this one's from Ronnie Box Kerrville RV for the Sheriff's Special Response Team Fund. So we've
Move
got,
for approval on all three.
so we've got 5 from Bach, 5 from Anonymous, and 2 from Carlisle.
Second.
Okay, motion been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve all 3 donations as presented. Any discussion?
I want you to be my fundraiser.
You're done. You're retired.
Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, all good. Item 1.15, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Texas Joint Counter-Drug Task Force and the Kerr County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, I'm looking for Commissioners Court and judge approval to be able to enter in this. Kerr County Sheriff's Office, along with the Texas Joint Counter-Drug Task Force. This is a service that's provided to us. It would run on their calendar year. It would end September 30th. Then I'd come to y'all again if this worked out to go again. But basically, this is a National Guard analyst assigned to the Sheriff's Office. What we're responsible for is an office space, which we have, phone, and internet access, which I'm sure we can work all that out. It's at no cost to the county. Basically, it has to help us with drug-related cases, like we're currently working one that ties to California. I don't want to get into too much detail, but they will help us like sitting behind a computer where our guys will be able to be out in the field working more cases. When I was with DPS, we were able to use this service along with analysts. It's very successful in enabling us to make more cases.
I move for approval. Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Blue, to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Texas Joint Counter-Drug Task Force and the Kerr County Sheriff's Office. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 1.16, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the amendment to the agreement for inmate health care services between Kerr County and WellPath LLC, and allow the county judge to sign the same.
Yes, they're also looking for y'all's approval. It's my understanding you were in a 5-year contract with our medical services. We're in year 4. It goes up 3%. That's what this agreement is right here every year. Obviously, next year we'll look at getting some competitive bids, but it's my understanding not too many people provide this service. But this time I'm looking for y'all's approval to go up 3% on the next budget.
This is standard 3%
Yes,
each
sir.
year is what we've signed on to.
Yes, sir.
I move for approval.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Moser to approve the amendment to the agreement for inmate health care services between Kerr County and WellPath LLC. Any other discussion?
I'm curious, Sheriff, I know you have to transport patients to the hospital and
Yes, sir.
doctor and clinic or whatever. That part of the transport comes out of your budget?
Yes, sir.
That's
Now-
not part of insurance anyway?
Right, that is totally separate. This is just for medical needs inside the jail. Anything
In the
else?
jail?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
24-hour service.
That answers mine.
Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
Okay, we're going to move over to the approval docket. First one is paid bills.
Invoices for today's consideration, $1,097,399.40. I'm sorry? Yes, $1,097,399.40.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Blue to approve the bills as presented. And I just remind everybody, this is so big because we're closing on 550 Earl Garrett today. So,
It's a big one.
And that does not include Earl Garrett.
well,
It'll
that's
come
the
across
late.
the late.
So was it, okay, well then, help.
Sorry, we're
Then
fixing
why
to
is
do the next $1 million, so
Okay.
they are very much higher today.
And so why are we so high today then?
Because it's our normal 2 weeks, and
Okay.
we've got a lot of the reoccurring invoices in here.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0, pay the bills. Budget amendments.
Budget amendments. We have 6 budget amendments. The first 5 are just interdepartmental changes, line item changes. The number 6 are just line item changes also, but there are 2, they've been requested by the Public Defender's Office.
And those are primarily just what they are, is changing job titles around a little bit and moving money from how it was originally set out into what he's actually doing.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Blue, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the budget amendments as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Budget amendments approved as presented. Now we're going to go to the late bill.
Late bills, $1,181,228.91. And this does include the closing for the 424 and 550 Earl Garrett.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Baloo, seconded by Commissioner Moser to approve the late bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay, auditor reports.
Yes, we have audited 3 different departments, and we're asking that you accept the reports. We audited the Environmental Health Department, Justice of the Peace Precinct 1, and the District Clerk.
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Baloo to approve the reports as the auditor reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Monthly reports.
Yes. For May 2021, Treasurer's Monthly Report, Tracy Sullivan. For June 2021, Treasurer's Payroll Approval Report, Tracy Sullivan. Constable Monthly Report, Constable 1, Tommy Rodriguez. Constable 2, Kyle Snyder. Constable 4, Brad Ryder. Fines, judgments, and jury fees collected, JP1, Mitzi French. JP2, J.R. Holm. JP3, Kathy Mitchell. District Clerk, Dawn Lance. Indigent Services, HR Director, Jennifer Goss. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Baloo to approve the monthly reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 2.6, court orders.
Yes, we had the court orders from our last meeting, which was, when was our last meeting? 28th of June. And the only court order numbers were 38777 to 38799. Only modification I had, or slight change, was on 1.21, and it's revision of longevity plan. And what we actually said was, the way it was worded was approve the revised longevity plan. It's really approve a new longevity plan, and I think it's more accurate, and we're going to probably have this back on, actually that one's not going to come back on agenda, but it's to change the word from revised to new. I think it's more accurate for what we're doing because it is a new complete plan. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the court orders as revised with regard to the longevity plan. Any discussions? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Information agenda. Status reports from department heads. Number 3.2, status reports from elected officials. 3.3, status reports from liaison commissioners.
I have a couple of those. On that one, I will be meeting with John Bull this afternoon. We'll Tanya first, then John Bull to go over budget and kind of get everyone in line and go over trying to get that department into our system properly. Probably the best way to do it. There's no issues. It's just a matter of, figuring out how we do certain things. But anyway, I'll meet with John this afternoon on that after I meet with Tanya. The other thing is something that I keep on forgetting to bring up, and been involved with it for a while. The mayor I guess sometime in May or April, or maybe before, I'm not sure, at some point, he appointed me to a task force that he's overseeing related to public health issues. And we're looking at public health departments, things of that nature. Just a lot of it is out of the COVID as to why Kerr County and City of Kerr seemed to be low on the priority list to getting the vaccines. And when we realized that two of our neighbors did have public health authorities of some sort, were able to get the vaccines. Anyway, so we're looking at that. It's been very interesting. I think a few people probably additional people should have been included on it, but I'm trying to represent other county departments like the Veteran Service Department and Extension. But my guess is that at some point there will be a request from the city for us to participate in some sort of a public health something. It may be an authority, it may be a department, it may be an office. It's not going to be a very large thing. It's largely grant funded, more than likely. But it's pretty interesting. And I just want to let the court know that it's something that I've been going to another meeting tonight. But it is. It was interesting because the reason Uvalde County did get the vaccines quickly is largely because of this issue. And that has been determined. So there is some benefits to it. And what's also interesting about Uvalde County, not sure how they figured it out, but they did their health, it's not a health authority, I'm not sure what they actually did. They did it specifically to get the vaccines at the time. They had a little bit of advance notice from somewhere that that would happen. And that's all they did it for. They never had one before. And which is pretty interesting, but other counties have. Medina County has an interesting department. But we're trying to, it's an interesting type of group, but I just want to bring it to the court. That's being looked at. A lot of people in the community, I think, need to know that. And it's not going to be a large department or anything, I think, but I think that there will be. The city, I think, is going to want to do something, and they hope the county joins them with it.
I read the state law when that occurred, and some of them have to be a doctor, okay, the medical doctor, and then there's a lot of other responsibilities. Depends on how you set it up. So it could be another bureaucracy if you're not careful.
Right. And it's but anyway, it's interesting, and it's almost, it can be, this is surprising to me, it can be set up any way the governmental entity wants to set it up.
Right.
And it can be as small or as large.
It could be multiple entities too, multiple counties, multiple cities, blah blah.
But anyway, I just wanted to finally remember to bring it up that the mayor asked me to do.
The only other thing, liaison combination of KEDC and airport is there's been discussions about things happening in Mooney. Those discussions and activities are still underway. So haven't heard anything yet in detail that can be reported yet. So.
Okay. And then my boss handed me a note when I was talking about the applications for Commissioner Precinct 2. You do need to go on the website and get the Kerr County job application and fill it out. I know I've seen the people in the room that are here. Several of them have already done that. And along with the interviews for the short list, we will be there, the sheriff office will be conducting backgrounds on the last few. So with that, I don't think we have anything.
So I have something I want to just mention, and I think Commissioner Harris is dealing with this. We made a change in the materials we're going to use on roads, I guess last budget year. And we have white roads now instead of black roads in places. Mm-hmm. And so people look at them and they don't think they're finished. They are finished. They just look different. What many people grew up referring to as asphalt is a blacktop. It's a basketball court, it's a driveway, but that's not the only kind of asphalt there is and the only kind of finish there is. So you had some people that were not ecstatic about it. I have.
You might say that.
So we may have some more. Yeah, we may have some more folks saying that, and I just wanted everybody to know that this is what we chose and for budget concerns.
And I wasn't here. I know y'all discussed it in a workshop. I was following along from home, and I know there was a big increase for materials. for Road and Bridge.
Right.
And I wish I'd been here because I'd had some preliminary talks and knew that was coming. We didn't do as much seal coating last year, the COVID year, and then going to a better material for the future really made it jump up more than it normally would. But I can tell you, we have had nothing but headaches with some roads that we did last summer. And it's the same stuff they put on the street I live on. And I told the people those are going to settle in like mine did. They never settled in. And whether it be the material isn't as good as it used to be or whatever, plus having curbs in that neighborhood in Greenwood Forest, it really created some problems. Now, I think they've swept it. They're not here. I think they've swept it. I don't know if they got it.
County attorney's about to have a heart attack.
So maybe if you want to discuss the budgetary implications of that material, you can discuss it at the next workshop and add that to the list.
There you go.
I was avoiding eye contact. Okay, but anyway, more to come.
Yeah,
It's
more
just,
to come.
it's a different material.
More to come.
It is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Love you guys.
Okay. Anything else?
With 2 executive sessions.
Okay.
You'll come back to 120 after the executive session, is that the intent?
Really, 120 and the executive session item are worded this differently, but they're the same item.
So the executive session item, though, is about specific employee compensation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll come back to 120?
Yes.
So the court
That
is
was
going to
your
go
question.
into
Yes, the answer is
the court is going to go into executive session to consider personnel matters, specifically regarding Precinct 3 constable and the salary study compensation. Okay, so with that, we're going into executive session and we're going to recess and. Kerr County Court is back in open session. There is no, pardon? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. It is 12:27, and Kerr County Commissioners Court is back in session, and as I understand it, there's no action items of any kind, so court will be adjourned.